Welcome to episode 12 of 22 Man Game with Jared and Damon. I'm Jared. That's Damon. It is 8:35, Tuesday, October 14th. Got that regular recording schedule firing off right now. Damon, how are you?
So nice and productive. I'm doing well. Thank you. Nice and productive, I meant from the consistent recording schedule. Look how adult we are. So responsible and mature. You love to see it. It's a good day. I think it's a busy day, but it's an exciting weekend of football in the books. A lot of news and games to talk about. Um, I have to do this. Sorry. I grew up a big Tom Brady hater. But episode 12 just feels like I have to shout him out. It just feels like I have to.
I had the same thought before we started, where I know on Two Man Game, y'all used to do for every episode number, you would list like a player with that jersey. And it
Yeah.
feels too late for us to start that now, but part of me wanted to be like, I mean, 12 is like TB12, that's ingrained in my
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. I feel like we
Yeah.
should have been doing it. That's on me for not bringing it up earlier, but I was like, "Oh yeah, this is the one I have to mention. I have to. It's there's no choice."
Yeah, I had the same thought. I guess we could try to do, I couldn't name a single 13 to save my life. I guess Craig Reynolds on the Lions, our third
There
running
you
back,
go. Yeah.
everybody in the audience,
He changed his number, right? He did not used to be 13.
maybe he was 18 at one point? Question mark.
I thought he was like 28 or something super random for like a long time ago, but
I'll do the research. Anything else exciting from your week or just it's all ball?
It's all ball around here of the ethical variety. That's how we roll. I'm like totally blanking. My mind is empty on what else I did and have accomplished in this life. I had the flu. I think I said that a couple weeks ago, and it wasn't really the flu. I thought it was. This time I legit had the flu and was out of commission from like Thursday till Sunday.
Well, that is we're glad you're back at full strength, full potting strength. It sounded pretty tough. I know you kind of had the back-to-back ailments, so hopefully you are on the mend and healed and restored. Have you felt good since going back to work? Did the time off give you some restoration in that respect?
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been like, yeah, I'm feeling good and healthy now and I'm ready to go. But how are you? And what was Craig Reynolds' number? Was I right?
To be honest, I don't really know where to find that information. I will
All
say
right,
I
I'll
had no
find it.
idea he didn't start his career on the Lions. He started with the Commanders and then the Jags for a couple of years, which was news to me. But I,
Yeah, in 2023 he changed his number. It used to be 46. Used to be even worse than 13.
oh,
So,
so just silly. That's awesome. Anyway, let's let's
how are
move
you
on from
though?
like, I'm sorry.
How are you? We haven't
Oh,
talked
I'm
about
fine. I was I
you.
was I was just I'm chilling. I have been playing the game that we've both been playing and definitely didn't spend like 20 minutes discussing before we pressed record.
No.
No, definitely not. Yeah, mostly been that. The Sonic racing game has consumed a ton of my time. They released the Minecraft track and characters, which has been really fun. I honestly think it's more fun than the new Mario Kart, which was very lauded, but
Oh, hot take.
something about it. And hey, Joker's coming this month at some point. So us Persona 5 fans, rise up. So me, you, and you know, anyone else, I guess.
That's it. That's all I know.
We are
At
the
least
audience.
in
We
the
are the
Austin
audience.
area. That's all I'm familiar with.
Yeah. There's probably a club. We should try to find that. Anyway,
It's Persona feels like one of those things where the people in the Persona club are probably not the people I want to talk to. You know?
I do think about this. I think that there are hobbies and interests that you want to be standing outside the center of the group for. Like you kind of want to be one arm in on certain things, not whole
Hmm.
body in. Because if you're whole body in, then like I love Persona. I do. We both love those games. We love the Atlas games in general, I would say. But we don't like seek to exclude those who are not interested and only surround ourselves with those who are interested. I feel like if that's the
Right.
filter you put, like you said, you're going to end up with some, you know, interesting company, no doubt.
Unethical company, perhaps, and we don't do that here.
No, ethical ball only. Definitely some questions about ethical or unethical ball with a certain team coming up. But let's jump into the news because after we do our recaps, we want to tier list the watchability of our divisions, the 8 divisions right now. So let's move along by getting into the news, starting with a bit from the college football side. Penn State has fired their head coach, James Franklin, and owe him $50 million still on his contract. This came after he lost to Oregon, UCLA, and Northwestern in back to back to back games. Oregon, one of the top ranked schools in the country, UCLA and Northwestern, teams they were meant to demolish. What do you think of this firing, Damon?
Yeah, definitely can't blame him for the Oregon loss. That team was in the national championship last year, so get that. But UCLA and Northwestern, tough losses. I do know their quarterback, Drew Aller, no idea how to say that guy's name, is also out for the season. So that doesn't help. But yeah, there are just tiers of school in college football, and back-to-back losses against two relatively lower tier schools than you, and you're supposed to be a top program. Not a good look. So makes sense, I guess. I don't know. I'm not super tuned into college. I just thought it was at least worth mentioning because that's a big time school.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that college football, I would say compared to the NFL, looking at, for example, Titans Cardinals, where the Cardinals have no reason to lose that game, but a few crazy bad plays give the Titans the win. I don't think it happens when you're that far apart in college football, right? If you are truly a better team or meant to be a better team by 3 leagues, you don't fall that far down to earth, right? Alabama doesn't have a surprise loss every year per se, or the Alabama level teams. So to give up in a row, right? Two of those, and then obviously the loss to Oregon as well. Just a bad look. Here's a trivia question. Where did James Franklin coach before he coached for Penn State?
Well, I absolutely have no idea. I don't know anything about college. But to your
If
point, I
I'm
will say,
asking,
is it Vanderbilt?
I am, yeah, I am almost, yes, he was. Yeah, he was in Vanderbilt for 3 years. And I just happened to know that because everyone was like, oh, James Franklin was making something. And then he went to Penn State. So, anyway, just something that came to mind when I saw he
And
was
Vanderbilt's
fired.
doing well. I haven't looked at like 3 weeks, but weren't they doing like really well?
Yes, they had their first loss of the season to Alabama, but they're still ranked, and that loss was in Tuscaloosa. So yeah, they've been very competitive. So it's not like, oh, go out and hire him and bring the band back or whatever.
Right.
Just a little tidbit there, and anytime I can bring up random Vanderbilt sports trivia, I'm itching to
You
do
should.
it.
You should.
I don't know. I think it's kind of a fun wrinkle where a listener is going to be at bar trivia and they're going to get a really random men's college basketball question and be like, wait, I know where Scottie Pippen's son played, So anyway,
Scottie Pippen
let's,
Jr., perhaps. Uh,
yes, legendary Commodore Scottie Pippen Jr., Vanderbilt legend.
in other news, to move on, former Browns wide receiver David Bell announced his retirement today at just the age of 24. He was a third round pick by them back in 2022. Had a couple of injuries, but it was an off-field injury that he cited as the reason for not being able to play anymore, as it would be life risking. Didn't say what that injury was, but I mean, I believe him. Why would you just say that? That's crazy. What do you think about this?
Yeah, it's tough. Obviously, only 3 years in the league on a third round rookie contract. That's almost certainly enough money to give him some near term stability, right? I would have to look
Hmm.
up third round pick contracts, which I'm doing right now. I imagine it's probably somewhere between like $3 and $5 million in value, right?
More money than I've made in my adulthood that has been more than 10 years. So,
Yeah. Per Forbes, randomly, players picked in the third round can expect to make between 5.5 and 6 million in their rookie deals. So even if it's below that, right? That's, if he's making 5 million over the life of that contract, maybe that gets cut down to half. Still plenty of money to provide long-term stability, especially if this injury, prevents other forms of work. shame to see a player's career end early, but I always am happy to see players make a choice that is safe for them. So I
Hmm.
hope he has success in his next endeavors.
We have seen plenty of people make the opposite choice and then it goes awry. I mean, there's plenty of football players, I think probably more well known that I can think of in terms of that compared to other sports that after their careers are like really struggling to make a living and stuff like that. So, and struggling with life in general, injuries, blah, blah, blah. So,
Yeah, I think we don't talk about it a lot, but and granted, I think football compared to a lot of other professional sports has deeper rosters, so there's a greater
fair,
incident rate, but at the same time, it just feels like there's very few examples of baseball players that come to mind in the national consciousness who suffer paralysis or career-ending injuries that affect their entire body and not just like their throwing arm or something to that effect. So,
hmm.
um, anyway, oh, I did want to mention, speaking of baseball, before we move on here, unless you want to say anything else about David Bell, I don't want to cut
Yeah,
off.
I'll say one thing. My extra trivia for you. Going back to the previous thing, where did David Bell go to college?
Purdue.
Purdue. How do you know that?
I was reading an article today about it, and I think it was like from
A
the Indianapolis
Boilermaker.
Star, and they were like, "Yeah, Purdue alum David Bell announced retirement." Blah 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 blah. So,
He had multiple 1,000 yard seasons. I was looking at his stat sheet today for his college career.
um, I have a soft spot for Purdue, behind Vandy. I was looking at Duke and looking at Purdue. Can you name a
Oh
current
God,
Detroit Lion who played for Purdue by chance?
no, not a chance. I don't have an inkling.
I mean, I'll give you a hint. I like this player.
Is it Derek Barnes?
It sure is, baby. Come on, let's
Great.
go. Let's go.
I know where Craig Reynolds went to college for some reason.
Yeah, that's a really random one. What is it?
It's Kutztown.
Yeah, which I couldn't point to on a map, but I think that that's really cool.
Yeah,
Speaking of baseball, sorry, I don't care about baseball very much for most of the year. I like checking in on the Tigers if they're doing something interesting, whatever. The Tigers, I don't know if you're baseball aware whatsoever, but they were historically leading their division. They were projected to get like the home games, all that nine. Had a massive backstretch collapse, lose the division to the Guardians, then beat the Guardians in essentially the wild card round to go on and play the Mariners. And it came down to the last game of the series in
it's like
what
15 innings, right?
it was insane. And I
Yeah,
wasn't watching the whole game. I checked in the 12th, and it was just some of the most intense, pure, for the love of the game, because all it would take is one hit, right? One mistake. The Tigers get multiple double plays, taking two guys out at once to end innings. It's so taut. It's so intense. They miss a bases loaded opportunity, and then finally they bring in another a new pitcher, and he's not able to keep it going, and the Mariners advance. But it was just like for man, maybe the 2 hours I was watching because it went on for a long time, even after the 12th. It was just like such a electric moment in sports, and so something I will definitely remember about baseball, and maybe bump it up in the Q rating for me a little bit, at least during playoff time.
yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, first time in a little bit they've been kind of playoff relevant, right? Um, Not
Yeah,
exactly always in that picture.
I think they've I want to say it's been like 17 years since they made it to a championship series, which is what they fell short of. But yeah, they in recent years had been kind of woeful. I mean, I think the whole story of Detroit sports was okay, we've got four really kind of bad teams, and now the teams are finding themselves, obviously, with the Pistons. So anyway, it was just kind of a fun. I'm not trying to make it all Detroit. It was just a fun sports moment I had there. Uh, let's pivot to some football off-field stuff super fast. One other piece we wanted to hit. Former Jets center Nick Mangold announced that he was diagnosed with a chronic kidney disease back in 2006. and currently needs a kidney transplant. I don't know a ton about what Mangold has done since retirement, but I will say that when he was on the field, he was one of those offensive linemen that existed in the public consciousness and is definitely a staple player of that era of football. And so hopefully he gets the treatment he needs.
Jason Kelsey before Jason Kelsey.
Great take. I think that's actually so true. Did he end up going to the Bucks with Brady at the very end to get a ring? I thought.
I don't think he played that long, did he?
I will look
The
it up while
guy's
you
like
tell
12
us.
years older than me. He's like
I
in his
am
40s now.
I'm doing the research.
Fair. Yeah, I believe he has O-type blood. So if you're listening and you have O-type blood and want to give Nick Mangold your kidney, do that. Go find. He made a post about it. I don't know. Go to the link. Yeah,
Yes.
a player I knew from Madden exclusively that was like, oh, this guy on the he's always the best player on the Jets roster every year in Madden. Oh, that's crazy.
He played through 2017, so I guess he was not. I can't remember when the Bucks won their Super Bowl. Time is really strange. Let me see.
Yeah, if you ask me pre-COVID or post-COVID, I don't know if I could answer that question.
It might have been COVID. It might have been 2020. I'll figure this out. Uh, tell us about this trade. Tell us about this trade.
Yes, there's a trade that took place, kind of a weird one. The Jaguars and Browns, famously of the Travis Hunter trade in this draft, made another trade where the Jags traded corner CB Tyson Campbell and the Eagles' 2026 seventh round pick, if I'm not mistaken, acquired in the Tank Bigsby trade earlier this season, to the Browns for cornerback Greg Newsome and the Jets' 2026 sixth round pick. So a one round pick difference and cornerback for cornerback. Kind of an interesting move here that I don't really understand because I'm not super well versed in every NFL team's cornerback room. So I don't really know the talent difference between these players if there is one.
Yeah, I was listening to analysis. Maybe it was Heed the Call, but they were talking about. By the way, it was 2021 was Super Bowl 45, so I don't know where I got Nick Mangold, but they might have had another center on those Bucks teams that was sort of like one of those guys who's been around, so to speak.
Hmm.
But oh, I guess Ryan Jensen. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, apparently Tyson Campbell signed an extension this offseason or
Hmm.
maybe last offseason, and so he was kind of cost controlled. And then Greg Newsome is on the last year of his deal, so he's expected to make more than Campbell on his new contract. So I heard some kind of analysis that the Browns maybe were looking for a bit of a less cumbersome corner contract that they had on the books there, and then this gives maybe the Jags the opportunity to extend a player that's maybe of higher talent, or else um, to sort of get some quality play while getting out of a contract that they no longer had interest in the form of Campbell.
That
So I
makes
think this is a little
sense.
bit more of a contract situation than
Is
strictly like
there
style of
somebody on the
playing.
Browns that they're paying like a lot of money to? I know there is. I'm queuing you.
Okay.
I'm setting you up.
Oh well, of course, Miles Garrett, of course.
Oh, that's not
There.
who I was talking about.
Oh, Deshaun Watson, the bad
Deshaun-
person.
Yeah.
I was
Sitting on the
really,
bench making 50 million or whatever, right? So that'll hurt. They're paying
yeah.
like
That
eight quarterbacks right now. It's awesome.
I think it's. I mean, that may be one of the most. Speaking of ethical ball, right? One of the most unethical transactions ever. So I am perfectly fine for them to have to deal with the punishment of that. And if that's what it looks like, then so be it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a trade that probably doesn't fundamentally alter the on-field product for either team, but maybe affects the team build strategy going forward for both clubs here. One more piece of news before we jump into the games. Damon, do you want to take this one?
I'll take it, I suppose. The Titans, after their loss this week to the Raiders, which we'll talk about later, fired head coach Brian Callahan. I wrote Steelers on there. They didn't lose to the Steelers. I just said the Raiders. I don't know how that happened because I wrote the note. Mike McCoy, their senior offensive assistant, that's not a coordinator position, has been named their interim head coach.
Yeah, Mike McCoy, former head coach himself, so I imagine that you're bringing in head coach experience, not having to shake up the coordinators. Callahan's father also on the staff, and he opted to resign after his son was fired. Obviously, not a huge
Hmm,
surprise there.
tough.
Yeah, uh, it's it was something that I had been advocating for. Obviously, you don't want to trivialize the fact that this is someone losing their job and having their career trajectory fundamentally altered, and those things are very difficult. But I was actually watching the most of the first half of Titans Raiders, and I I don't think the product they were putting on the field was tenable. I don't think it was exciting. I don't think it was compelling. I don't think it made the Titans look good. But I read a stat that I found very interesting, and it's trivia for you now.
Okay.
Of the last eight first overall pick quarterbacks,
Okay.
how many of their coaches were fired in their first season?
Um, yeah. Okay, I think I saw something similar. I think it's like the last five for sure. Um, Caleb Williams, who was before Caleb Williams? Can't remember.
I'm looking at the order right now because I am trying
Because
to
it
remember
was
who
who
came.
was it, Eberflus last year for the Bears?
Yep, Eberflus.
Um, can you give me some teams and I can maybe get some coaches and some names out there. I'm
Okay,
like
I've pulled
the
it up. I've got the Wikipedia up here.
great.
Um,
So I'm not going to be able
okay,
to give you a total number. I know it's at least five.
it it's the last four in a row for sure. Bryce Young for
Bryce
the
Young,
Panthers.
Frank
Uh, oh, it
something.
was Frank Reich. You're right. I was trying
Yeah.
to. My brain was saying Matt Rule, but I think Matt Rule was before that. Trevor Lawrence,
Oh,
very famous coach
oh
firing.
my God. What's that guy's name? Urban Meyer. God, that guy sucks, man.
He was so awful. I mean, he was so awful. Um,
Yeah.
and then Joe Burrow
Joe Burrow.
retained.
Yeah, I was wondering if the Bengals were on here. I was like, is Joe Burrow recent enough? As a number one overall pick. I don't know if I know who the Bengals coach was.
I think it was Zach Taylor, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they got rid of their head coach.
Oh, okay.
Because it
I
was
thought
so
we
the
were
last
doing the
four in a
T.
row, and then the
Uh-huh.
stat is six of the last eight,
Six of the last eight. Okay.
which going back eight, so it's Cam, Caleb, Bryce, Trevor, Burrow, Kyler Murray, who Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler were definitely together for longer than that.
Yeah.
Baker Mayfield, and
Okay.
then I guess Goff is
Oh
I think the
man.
eighth.
No clue who the Rams head coach was Goff's rookie year. Not a.
This is a coach you would know. He coached the Titans and the Rams. He was notoriously the 7-9 guy.
Oh man. Are you sure? You might be overestimating my coaching knowledge.
He's one of those names that was always around. Maybe not. It was Jeff Fisher, if you remember the
Oh,
name Jeff Fisher.
Colts center. Yeah, I I
there,
know.
there you go. Yeah.
I know that.
Um, no, he was just one of those guys where, especially being in Tennessee, right? He would just always like he was the opposite side of Mike Tomlin, where Mike Tomlin always gets a winning record. He would always be
Yeah,
just
yeah.
below a winning record, right in the middle there. Um, and so, if I'm not mistaken, the coaches that were fired there were, I assume, yeah, they must have let go of. Oh my God, I just said Jeff Fisher, and then I
Hmm.
believe maybe it was Hugh Jackson who was Baker's coach that first year.
The
Um,
Browns have fired a lot of coaches before Kevin Stefanski, so
that is really true.
it's definitely
Uh,
believable.
no, I mean Hugh Jackson was so not good as a coach. Anyway,
Also worth noting, Patriots coming to town this week. Mike Vrabel, former Titans coach,
tough man, tough.
that got fired. I also saw, they went GM firing, Mike Vrabel firing, fired the new GM, and now
Yep.
fired Brian Callahan. All separate times. Weird decision, Titans owners.
Yeah, it was God, who was the original GM who traded away AJ Brown? He was a hated name. Oh, John it was like John Robinson, I think. Um,
Don't ask me. I'm not the person. While you look that up, I will say, to your point about Brian Callahan, yes, it sucks for someone to lose their job, especially after having success as a coordinator being the main reason why he got the job. But yeah, I mean the Will Levis year was pretty bad, and then bad enough to get the number one overall pick with Cam Ward. Yes, Will Levis is not a great quarterback. Yes, Cam Ward is a rookie. But I think what you want to see when you have these young teams that may underperform, sure, progress. You got to see progress at some point, and I am seeing no progress from that team. It is ugly out there every week. So, makes sense.
I actually think that's a great segue into our wheel games because I had a really bad team to watch this week,
Yes,
and
sir.
it was part of my takeaway whether they're one of those teams who's got the potential to show
Mm.
progress. It was John Robinson. It was John Robinson, and then obviously fire Vrabel. Ran Carthon was paired with him before that. Then they hire Brian Callahan. Then they fire Ran Carthon. Then they hire Mike Borgonzi. Then they fire Brian Callahan. So nice. Go
Put my
Titans.
Indeed resume in on that one. Maybe I can get in the door. I
I
don't
mean, hey, there's a chance. I mean that.
know.
Apparently their Heath the Call was talking about this because their producer's a Titans fan, and they were just talking about the firing in general. But someone asked the team president, like, "Oh, where is the owner?" And they were like, "Oh, she's at home. She sent me to deal with this." And it's like you don't want to
That's
advertise
not what you want to say.
that they're at home. You know what I mean? Completely out of the building. Don't care. Either way, let's
Strange
get to
choice.
these wheel games. Let's
Let's
start
get to
talking
week
about it.
six, baby. Let's talk about. All right, now that you've listened for 30 minutes of us talking about nothing, let's talk about something.
Yeah, who
Um,
replaced Frank Reich, and how did their team do this week
who
against your
replaced
wheel
Frank
team?
Reich? That was one Dave Canales and the Panthers, who were not my wheel team, by the way. My wheel team were the Cowboys.
I said, how do they fare against your wheel team, the Cowboys?
Oh,
I
okay, okay.
remembered about three-quarters of the way through. Don't worry.
Yeah, you texted me like the NFC South is done. And I was like, the Panthers aren't the team that I'm supposed to pay attention to. But I will say I did pay more attention to them than the Cowboys when watching because I feel like they have more like interesting kind of storylines to follow in terms of their player development and stuff. So I'll talk about them first. Bryce Young looks still not very good, sadly, against a Cowboys team that has let up a ton of passing yards to every team they played because their secondary is so bad and injured. Their defense overall is pretty subpar to say the least. And they did get a couple of goal line touchdowns to Tedero and McMillan. That was nice to see. He's 6'4" and like 220. You probably should have been doing that. I'm glad it finally occurred after I traded him off of my fantasy team, of course. And aside from that, Xavier Legette has kind of come around recently. You know, first round pick last year, I think. He hasn't looked great so far, but he was okay in the scheme. Um, but who was great was Rico Dowdle, second game in a row in Chuba Hubbard's absence, in which he had 200 plus scrimmage yards. The Cowboys defense cannot defend the pass. They also can't defend the run. They can't defend anything. So that's what I meant when I was talking about Bryce Young, where you see someone like Rico Dowdle take advantage of the situation, run all over them, catch passes in the backfield, etc. Bryce Young couldn't really replicate that with his arm. So um, he was awesome. I think they will have a conversation now about when Chuba is healthy. You know, is it more of a committee? How does it look in that regard? Because it's one of those things like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. You know, once he's come out, so you can't be like, okay, you're back to the bench after 200 plus yards games. Um, so I feel like that will be a committee and against his former team. So congratulations, Rico Dowdle. The Cowboys, the team I was supposed to watch. Here's what I can tell you. One, Miles Sanders randomly placed on IR before the game for the season. I have no idea what the injury is. That caught me off guard. So Javonte Williams got a bulk of the carries in this. Still working in rookie running back Jaden Blue. He was unhealthy to start the season. He's kind of slowly working his way there, but Javonte has been kind of a workhorse back in that regard. Hasn't looked quite as good as he did at the start of the season. Part of that is probably because the Cowboys' offensive line have suffered a couple injuries since the season started. Dak looks okay. Um, he is chugging. He is pushing the offense through. course, CeeDee Lamb's still injured right now. George Pickens has been a great primary receiver in those absences. I would say these past 3 games of George Pickens is like better than I ever saw him on the Steelers. And I think there was always the talent on the Steelers. There was just maybe never the right scheme, never the right quarterback. He kind of went through a couple of those early on in his career. Um, and in the Cowboys, it looks like that's not the case. And they've had a lot of kind of weird, not necessarily problematic, but just like kind of player concern things, and he has not been one of them. He has been a trusted soldier over there. Jake Ferguson as well, their tight end, like most targets for a tight end in the league. He is constantly targeted, constantly reliable. Just nice to see because he was very injured last season. So nice to see him coming back and playing well on that end. So their offense put up 27. I think you can't really complain. Missing their best receiver, missing a couple of offensive linemen, but their defense is so bad that it gave up 30 to the Panthers, and they lose. And that seems about par for the course for the Cowboys. They're gonna kind of be like the NFC version of what we thought the healthy Bengals were gonna be, where their defense was so bad that their offense has to churn out top-notch performances to win them games. And this was just not a week that they were that good. 27 is not bad by any means, but when your defense gives up 30, you got to be just a little better execution wise.
Yeah, I again, for me, my barometer, and I really can't remember where I heard this, but if your defense holds them to 21, I feel like it's the offense's job or it's the offense's fault if you lose, unless it's special teams weirdness. But like, you give up 30, then your defense is failing you and your offense needs to catch up. This is like, were the Cowboys on bye last week, or did the Cowboys play someone and I'm totally completely lost on who
No,
they
they
played?
weren't on bye last week. Who did they play last week? I don't know, but they weren't on bye.
Oh, they played the Jets. That's why it was
Ah, so they
out of
were on
mind.
bye. I see.
But yeah, pretty much. I was more thinking, okay, they had that really close game against the Giants. You obviously battle the Packers to a literal tie. You lose by 3 to the Panthers here. It's clear that there's some. It feels a little bit like how the Bucks have won a lot of razor thin games, except these games have not been you play a team well and then you sneak out at the end. It's you aren't very good, but you're hanging around and then you just don't have enough gas. And I wonder if they're going to be able to find some sort of sustainability to turn winnable games into wins and not, damn, I can't believe we gave up 30 again.
Their games are like who has the ball last. That's who
Yep.
that's who has the chance to win. Yeah, I mean, you give the cat this Cowboys offense, even with the injuries, and you give them like the Browns defense, you have like a 3 seed. Yeah, like a really good team right there.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys I will say for a coach that was not on a lot of people's radar to be putting up consistently on offense without CD, I think is a really good sign for the potential for this team. Looking forward, once they restock the cupboard on defense, and I don't. I'm not saying this to excuse the Micah trade. I don't think their defense is Micah Parsons away from being capable. It might flip these close games for sure, right? If you have a Micah level talent, does it hold the Panthers to 23 or something like that, 26 instead of 30? But to be like a consistent contender, I think their defense needs to take multiple steps forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think it's a Micah away from being a competent defense and an overall good team. Like you said, maybe a result or two changes in these really close ones. I do think how the Micah thing can come into this is that their pass rush or run stopping are sort of lacking to an extent that they have to commit more resources to that, and they
Mm.
can't drop as many players as they may want to into their weakened secondary. So they can't really commit to either the pass or run. They kind of have to middle in both, which allows teams to do both pretty effectively.
Yeah, that makes total sense, and I think the fact that Rico Dowdle hung 200 yards on them is testament to that, right? Obviously, you were watching this game. I didn't have eyes on it, so I don't know if these were big chunk runs, but I would imagine that he was probably pretty efficient on the day.
Yeah, pretty efficient on the day. The successful quote unquote passes that Bryce Young had a lot of were these kind of check down passes as well, using him in the
Yeah.
flats and things like that. So, and I mean, he did it again. He did it last week too against another team that I cannot remember. Excuse me. Um, but doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Oh, the Panthers against the Dolphins. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I mean, two pretty lackluster defenses, but still
Sure.
200
Oh, sure.
yards. 200 yards is 200 yards. It's not easy for anyone to do.
Yeah. No doubt.
No
Okay. Any
doubt.
last thoughts on this game or?
Last thoughts, Panthers, some of the cleanest uniforms in the league.
Well, uh, I think their blue's strong. I think sometimes they use it in better ways than others, but I think they definitely have the ingredients for depending on which. I don't love their black with the blue. I kind of like the blue, like blue shirt, blue pants.
That's what they rocked this weekend.
No, I think that's super clean. I'm not as crazy about the black with the blue, but that's just me. Okay, let me talk about my game. I know everyone's been salivating for Patriots Saints coverage here. So, Patriots go down to New Orleans, win this game 25-19. I'm glad I went and looked back at the drive chart because I'm reminded of some of the things the Patriots did that grossed me out. Listening to Heed the Call, they were talking about how this was one of the worst officiated games of the week and like really
Mm.
deplorably so. I don't have an eye for that. So I won't comment on that much until we get to a different game that makes my blood hurt when I think about it. But there was one deep, deep shot to Pop Douglas for a touchdown that was overturned on, I think it was like a legal contact on Stephon Diggs. And it was just kind of random. He wasn't really particularly close to the receiver on the play. The contact didn't seem very egregious, so it just sort of felt a little out of place.
Can I
Regardless,
uh, can I comment on this?
please go ahead.
I didn't watch this game, but I was listening to a different podcast, and they were talking about how the NFL has made it a thing this year to focus on illegal contacts, has to focus on, I don't even know what the penalty's called, but I guess over the years, offensive linemen have kind of drifted back away from the line of scrimmage more and more. And if they're not close enough to the line of scrimmage, they get a flag called on them. They
Oh,
used to just
illegal
get
man
like
downfield or
a war. No, because they're not, it's the opposite. They're going back
oh.
to the pocket early, basically. They're not false starting, they're just lining up a little further back.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and there used to be like they would just kind of warn them to get in the right position, but now it's become like such an issue. Like I think Chiefs tackle Jawan Taylor, I think is his
Yep.
name, is a guy that this happens to a lot because he does it on purpose. Um, and they're talking about penalties like that or like illegal contact, things that happen usually so far away from plays that don't have anything to do with how the play plays out, and you take away this great play that occurred. I think the one that they were referencing was in the Bears game. Roma Dunze had a 12-yard touchdown pass that was taken back because their left tackle was like an inch off of where he was supposed to be on the offensive line. Something that probably didn't ultimately affect the outcome of the play. And it's just one of those things where, like, when you think about, yes, you want the rules to be followed, but how much is that actually affecting the product on the field and the entertainment value of people watching it? It's worth discussing because I feel like, the NFL is one of those leagues where you could call a penalty on literally every play, probably.
Mhm.
Um, which ones do you want to focus on? Which ones really matter? Which ones really endanger players? Which ones really affect the outcome? I think is something that they should think about.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an extended conversation to be had about in an almost unenforceable league where you would have to keep track of 22 people's behavior at any one time.
Hmm.
What rules do you prioritize? And obviously, like pre-snap penalties are pretty easy to measure because if you jump early, and then everyone points at them. But a lot of these, like, I feel like a lot of time we talk about offensive line, there's a lot of holds that don't get called, or like if you put your hand in the right spot, or some corners are more physical than other corners. So a lot of gray area there. And then there's also I don't think there's foul baiting to the degree that there is in the NBA by any means, but there's certain deep shots that quarterbacks might take to try to draw pass interference, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
So
I mean, the
all that
offensive
just,
player gets so much more leeway than the
yep,
defensive player on pass interference. I've
yeah.
I've like seen zero OPIs called this year, and I've seen so many DPIs of illegal contacts, etc.
I feel like I've seen one or two OPIs, but they're pretty rare, and I think they really have to initiate early and aggressive contact to get that. But either way, uh, let me uh, let me loop back around here. Patriots, that was a touchdown shot to Pop Douglas called back, but it would have been his second deep touchdown of the game for Douglas. So I was overall impressed with the Patriots taking deep shots. They were moving down the field. I mean, they scored 25, so they were scoring well, not necessarily at will. Um, and I had forgotten about this until I was looking at the drive chart. But late in the game, there was, let me see, I think, yeah, like 8 minutes left or 6 minutes left in the fourth. Obviously, up one touchdown here or 6 points. So, touchdown, no extra point. They punt from the New Orleans 43. And granted, it was fourth and 13. That's probably outside of healthy field goal range to be
It's
taking a
like
shot.
that's like 60 yards. That's makeable,
I mean, to make I
but you don't want to give the Saints good field position if you miss, I guess. I get it.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thought is with 6 minutes to go and you start them at the 40. The Saints need a touchdown, but they can take the lead just by kicking an extra point. So that's obviously kind of a higher risk score than if they were just scoring to tie. But I feel like it's very rare in the NFL to see punts in that territory anymore, at least because obviously Detroit is a risk heavy team and I watch them often. And then I just think the league has kind of moved on from a lot of these punts, so it definitely caught me off guard. They made the right call. The Saints punted back, and then the Patriots never let go of the ball. My big takeaway for the Saints is I think Spencer Rattler has a case to be their quarterback for 2026. I thought he was solid. You look at a team like, for example, the Bengals before trading for Joe Flacco with Jake Browning at the helm, and their quarterback is playing them out of games. I think when we were talking about the sort of two-headed monster of Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shook, that was the impression we were getting. But watching him play, I thought he didn't do a lot to ruin anything for the team, right? He wasn't just like making me scratch my head. He was not super explosive, but he was efficient, getting a lot of praise from the play-by-play for making kind of good calls on scrambles and such, as I remember. So I think that by and large, and again, this was a one touchdown loss, which you don't want at home. And I think this was a game where if the offense is more explosive, they could win, right? The in the second half, the Saints only manage one field goal on their drives, including a fumble turnover. But on balance, I think that if I'm a Saints fan, I want to see from my 1-5 team a group of people who are consistently making efforts, putting themselves in positions to win or be close to winning. Am I getting good play from my young talent, which I didn't see a ton of that around Rattler that really blew me away from an offensive standpoint or really defensive standpoint. I'm trying to think if there was anyone who really stood out in my memory. Not really, right? Unfortunately,
Demario Douglas, Cameron
unfortunately,
Jordan, people that are so old. How are they on the
yeah.
save?
They definitely have a lot of elder statesmen. I think if I am the Saints, I think the best case scenario is you use Rattler to be your bridge quarterback, and as you add young pieces around him, you find that they actually can get you into playoff contention, and then you say, okay, why don't we give him like a medium quarterback contract, right, somewhere in the Darnold, Geno Smith range, and maybe see if we can build around that. Because speaking of college football, I don't know if there is a quarterback in college football that is like a clear number one pick guy, which is a
Hmm.
definite inversion of what we expected. But Drew Aller, I don't think was necessarily circling the number one overall conversation, but Lenora Sellers was talked about
Hmm.
that way. He got hurt. Arch Manning said he wasn't even going to come out this year, but he's looked uh, poor. He's
Bad.
just like a poor player. He's not very capable
I
from what
say
we've seen.
bad. I watched the Ohio State game while I helped you move. That's by Texas exposure, but he looked
Yeah.
bad.
We typically have the games on in the kind of lobby at work, or Addie's enjoyed watching Texas. So I'll kind of be privy to what's going on. They got a big win over Oklahoma, but man, Arch does not feel like the reason his team is winning. Uh, and Cade Klubnik for Clemson has not looked very capable. Went to Westlake actually, if I'm not mistaken. So
Oh.
it's a high school in our general area in Austin. But all
Yuck.
of ew, um,
I don't know anything about Westlake.
that's all I know is it's like five-ish minutes from, places of business that I am
Sure.
familiar with.
Yeah.
It's like in the area of things that I know. But all of this to say, I actually think Baker went to Lake Travis also, but uh, another big Austinite. Regardless, I don't see a quarterback coming out that everyone's saying like, yeah, it's a number one guy. And with both the Jets, Saints, Titans don't need a quarterback. Uh, Raiders all kind of circling that spot. If I'm the Saints, the way Spencer Rattler's playing makes me feel a little bit better about not taking that risk necessarily, and maybe using one of those top picks to just keep building up my young talent and seeing if Kellen Moore is the guy. And if he is, hey, great. If not, maybe you eject him and then find a coach to pair with your first year quarterback instead of letting a coach you're skeptical of draft that quarterback and then fall apart, right? So, as we talked about earlier with Cam Ward and the pattern of coaches getting fired in that first season. So, I my bold take is I don't think the Saints are going to be the 1-16 team you envisioned. This gives me the
Rats.
air of a 3-win to 4-win team that has some promise at quarterback, turns over some veterans in the offseason, maybe at the trade deadline, though I haven't seen much about that, and then starts reloading through the draft uh, in the next year, 2 years. And then maybe they'll get more information on Rattler. Maybe Tyler Shuck will come out of the woodwork. But overall, I thought it was a game where, when the Patriots pinned the Saints deep on that short punt, it felt like the Patriots saying, "We know you're not going to make that drive." And sitting there as a fan, I thought, man, they're probably not going to make that drive, and they didn't make that drive. So I don't think the Saints were like giving the Patriots all they could handle, but it felt like a relatively competitive game. Obviously, a one-score game, and that isn't a mirage. They were scoring early and often, and then it just sort of petered out in the second half. So, yeah, interesting game. Spencer Rattler gives some optimism, and again, that a couple deep shots that got loose on their defense just kind of took the game out of their hands. And I think those are the kind of plays that good teams are able to limit staying contests. But oh my gosh, so much time on Patriots Saints. Any thoughts on that game before we jump into the relevant contests?
Yeah, real quick, I'll go. Spencer Rattler seems like high floor, low ceiling. Maybe is like a good way to think about him as a player. Tyler Shuck, will he be ready in his sophomore season at age 26? I don't know.
Wow.
Drake May was awesome also, so I'll throw that out there.
Uh,
Granted, it's the Saints, but
yeah. No, I think it's the Patriots look good. I think the Patriots winning this game was a good sign for them that coming off of a huge, huge win, they didn't evaporate, they didn't lose focus, they were able to take care of an inferior opponent. And I think the Patriots are well on their way to a wild card if they're able to keep this performance up. So,
currently
so thumbs
division
up on the
leading
Patriots.
Patriots, by the way.
I'm sorry.
Currently division leading Patriots, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to save that for when we got to our division segment, but definitely worth talking about. Let's
Yeah.
jump into these relevant games. Let's start with the Thursday night division battle, the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles coming off a loss. Surely they'll turn it around. But instead, they go down. Giants double them up 34-17. New York on top. Eagles now on a two-game skid. Any thoughts from this game, Damon?
My thoughts, it is a relevant game. That's why we put it here in the relevant game section. No one would have picked the Giants doubling the Eagles score coming into this season. The Eagles look like they need their car jump started on offense. They just look like they're in a little bit of malaise right now. Kind of ick and bleh is how I would describe their offensive play. I do know their secondary was struggling. I believe Quinyon Mitchell left this game. I believe they were already missing another corner, and then Cooper DeJean usually plays the nickel. So their outside perimeter corners were not great. Granted, it's the Giants without Malik Neighbors. So if you're really having that much of an issue with Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton was out, so it was like Jalen Hyatt, yeah, your guys should be able to handle that. And Dart still looks good. Still having a solid rookie season after he got that start back in week 3.
Yeah, Scatterbo looking like a strong running back
Yeah,
as well. Though I was
yeah.
watching a TikTok today. They were talking about like, man, you are running on borrowed time because
I'm already over. I'm kind of already over the Cam Scatterbo. Like, I love how this guy runs the football. It's like, dude, this guy's gonna have like a traumatic injury in like 4 weeks
that was
because
that was
he's
kind of their point. And
insane.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's. I mean, he plays. I think the thing about Scatterbo is, yeah, we love physical play. We love it from like Derrick Henry. But if you're putting yourself in danger with that, maybe not how you want to go about it, but it's working for them right now. The Dart Scatterbo combination really just lighting a fire under the Giants. And yeah, I feel like if the Eagles had the 16th best offensive play designer in the NFL, they would be at least 5-1 right now, just because again they have such a loaded offensive line talent. Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. There's just a lot of good players on that side of the ball, and so to see them underperform there, maybe it's an attitude thing with some of their players being disgruntled. Maybe it comes back to coaching, but I think there is a lot of offensive potential left on the table. We'll see if, as the season rolls along, they're able to unlock that potential. But right now, sliding to 4-2, not ideal for the Eagles.
maybe it's
Next
that
game.
Giants defensive line I talked about.
Oh, menaces. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, that's looking. I mean, that's looking good. I think the Giants. Right now, there's so much parity in the NFL. There's so much just like even play that it doesn't feel like there are a lot of teams that are truly out of contention based on their play. I would say the Saints are probably one of them, but maybe the Giants have a chance. Um, Jumping ahead, Seahawks 20, Jaguars 12. You put this note in here. I think it's very sweet. Jags defensive end Josh Hines-Allen's 8-year-old son, Wesley, was diagnosed with leukemia at the end of last season and was named an honorary captain for this game and is currently in remission, which is great to hear. And I love when teams honor their players' needs and respect their lives and bring support to them in creative ways. And so I imagine, if you're Wesley and hopefully remission and goes well and he remains cancer free, but I mean that's going to be something that sticks with you for a long time. Maybe it's life altering, maybe it's just like the best two truths and a lie anyone could ever bring to
Mm,
like,
there
their
you
for like
go.
you're 12 years old. I was captain for a Jacksonville Jaguars game, and it's like, wow, what are you talking about? That was true. It's kind of a great icebreaker. I don't know. I think sometimes
Yeah.
that has value in and of itself. But either way, I mean, it's something that'll travel with you for the rest of your life in the best possible way. So super cool to do that for him. I wasn't as plugged into to this one because I was on the Saints grind in the 12 o'clock window here. Um, and I did split screen the Saints with Browns Steelers for much of that game.
Mm,
So,
awesome. That
oh, I
sounds
know,
great.
it's sweet. I had to see Dylan. Any
Yeah,
thoughts here
fair.
on Seahawks Jags?
Yeah, I mean, I'll to add to the point with Josh Hines-Allen's son. It was awesome because he was like holding his hand and walking him out there, and the crowd was going to get to it. Of course, home game for the Jags, so it's all very very cool and nice and sweet. You love when stuff like that happens. Um, you got to remember it's just a sport. Yeah, I wanted to put this in the relevant games section because I think The Seahawks are starting to look like a real deal contender, like contender. And I had them pretty high. I think I had them at 12-5 or something like that in my preseason record predictions. And they keep proving me to look right, and I thank them for that. And I think the Jaguars with 12 points is more of a testament to the Seahawks being a really good, complete football team with a solid defense and a pretty like solidly performing offense. So they're pretty balanced in that approach. Because I think when you hear Jaguars, it's like, ugh, the Jaguars have been pretty good this season. So no slouches in their own right.
No, this was a real win against a Jaguars team that's been competitive. I did hear the Heath Call recap. I think they said this was the first game where the Jags got no takeaways. Um,
Mm,
and their defense had been getting an insane number of turnovers. So
yeah,
you wonder if regression there is going to take the wind out of their sails. But that said, yeah, I mean Seahawks look real, and I think there's a team that kind of emerges every year as, oh, we need to think about this team in a way we hadn't before. That team was Washington last year, no doubt. I think Seattle is lining up to be in the NFC playoff conversation for the rest of the year if they keep playing this way. And by conversation, I think they will make the playoffs. But in terms of teams we expect to maybe make the NFC Championship and beyond, I think they're probably putting themselves in that small ring of teams where those expectations are maybe starting to bubble up. So definitely meaningful result there. Uh,
not sure how high is too high. And I've talked about this guy for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in a row. JSN is like a top five receiver. He's really
I
good.
I think the problem is there are currently about 12 top five receivers in the NFL.
Right.
But it's like, okay, maybe like is it Mecca Egbuka becoming a top five receiver, right?
Yeah,
Who do you
fair.
kick out? You still have Chase, you still have
Everybody
Jefferson.
that went to Ohio State and then Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. There,
Yeah.
there you go.
And then Isaac Tesla, maybe no. Let's move along here. Colts 31, Cardinals 27. Tell us about this pregame stuff. I read this today. It was wild. I
Yeah,
had no
I
idea this
saw
happened.
I saw clips of one of them, but the one I saw was Colts corner Charvarius Ward, was kind of running, up and down the field, not in gear or anything like that. And tight end Drew Ogletree, I guess, backed up into the path that he was running, and he just like collided with him like on his shoulder and fell down. And then he was like kind of woozy to get up, and they evaluated him and determined he had a concussion and was out for the game. So got injured in pregame warmups and kind of a silly little accident. Obviously, you don't want to see that. And then I didn't see this one. I just read about it, and then more details came out, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Uh, their backup quarterback, Anthony Richardson, fractured his orbital bone in his eye some incident that included the rubber leg band, the little bands that you use to stretch. I guess he was trying to stretch, and what I assumed happened is that it like slingshotted into his face. That's the only thing that I can assume happened there, and it fractured his eye, and he's placed on IR. He's out for at least 4 weeks as their backup quarterback.
Yeah, I guess there was some sort of malfunction according to the team. I mean, yeah, my thought was like, did a band snap and hit him in the eye? Like that's the only thing I can really imagine. But definitely a really tough start, especially, I mean, Charvarius Ward, the Colts' best corner, to my understanding, and not a particularly
Hmm.
deep position for them. Hopefully able to recover from that concussion. I always wonder, like, when you accidentally injure a teammate, Drew Ogletree has to be feeling like, oh my gosh. I haven't seen the clip. Maybe it's like not his
Especially when
fault.
you're like, I mean, it's not like it doesn't look like he does anything wrong. It looks like he is participating in like a catching warm up.
Sure.
And as he's going to catch the ball, he kind of backs up into Travarius Ward's running path. Um, but yeah, to your point, when you're like the third or fourth tight end and you injure the starting corner, tough.
Yeah. I also think this is a really random take, but I feel like the worst thing a quarterback could injure for a short-term injury might be their eye because, especially for a backup, your job is to just watch, right? And
Mm.
absorb the flow of the offense and everything. And I imagine that gets more difficult when you have one eye that's probably out of commission for a while. So, I suppose you can still exercise, stay in physical shape, but you can't do if you tear like a ligament of some kind for sure. But this has to make watching film more difficult. It has to make, following the flow of the game from the bench more difficult. I don't know. Just
I
seems like
feel
a
like
unique challenge.
the critique for Anthony Richardson is often a mental thing and not the physical specimen. So, yeah, this is probably worst case scenario for him.
I wanted to make a pointed joke to that end, but I'll listen to the better part of myself and instead just say the Colts signed Brett Rippon for depth at the QB position. Speaking of QB, Cardinals did not have Kyler Murray for this game with Jacoby Brissett starting in his place. And Cardinals wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., number 4 overall pick last year, exited due to a concussion, did not return to the game.
Yeah, kind of more of a shootout than I expected. Cardinals only losing by 4 here to a Colts team that wins yet again. And we'll talk about their division standing later.
Yeah, I am really pessimistic about the future of the Cardinals. I know they have a backup QB in this game, and it's impressive to stay in the conversation, but I'm just they've dropped their last 4, and I wonder how many times you can do that before the win just leaves the sails of the team and the locker room for a coach that didn't necessarily take them to the playoffs last year or anything, right? It's not like a letdown from highs they know they can reach. Relatively unproven track record just makes it kind of difficult to climb out of. So, if they could have come back and stolen this game after dropping a game to the Titans last week, that would have maybe made me feel better about this team overall. But yeah, I'm just a little skeptical about how long Jonathan Gannon will be able to retain that head job just based on their trajectory this year.
Shout out Bam Knight, Lions legend, touchdown run.
Hey, good for Bam. Great uh, on the onomatopoeia they would call him if he were in the NBA, right?
Right.
Uh, so little
Terrible.
Bam Adebayo joke for the fans here. Let's hit maybe the biggest NFC showdown of the week. Bucks 30, Niners 19. Both teams suffering injuries. Bucks wide receiver Emeka Egbuka, the rookie who has taken the league by storm from the wide receiver position, left with a hamstring injury and did not return. The Niners had a massive loss. Linebacker Fred Warner carted off due to an ankle injury, and his season is over. So another massive defensive injury after losing Nick Bosa earlier in the season for the Niners, and they are unable to overcome the Buccaneers after stealing a game from the Rams the week prior.
Yeah, Baker still looks great. They're strutting Sterling Shepard and Tez Johnson are out there because Mike Evans is out still, Godwin is out still, Stephen Course quite down. But they still have a pretty convincing win here. For the Niners, of course, still missing Ricky Pearsall, still missing Brock Purdy. You already mentioned Nick Bosa. Jawan Jennings, after this game, said he's playing through a high ankle sprain, a low ankle sprain, and 5 broken ribs. And I was like, you shouldn't be playing, actually. I think that's what I learned from what you just said. So I feel like this, maybe this is like reactionary to their fantasy football players, such as Christian McCaffrey last year. I feel like the 49ers are like a hospital like every year. What's going on over there? They gotta figure that out.
No, I mean they are consistently just banged up again and again, and they've been pretty competitive through those injuries so far. Uh, I don't know how much longer they can last before the clock strikes midnight on them, which again is a shame, right? I think thinking about I'm going to a Lions game next week, and there's that part of your brain that goes, if Ibuka doesn't play, we have a better chance of winning. But I always think football is at its best when the teams are at the height of their powers and doing everything possible to beat the other team with all the players at their disposal, and you never want to see someone get hurt. So it's just really disappointing to see a team that,
Ethical of you.
oh, thank you, thank you. We should do a podcast about that. No, I very disappointed to see the Niners, who have a lot of talent, great coaching, just losing players to injury and potentially losing the chance to be a competitive team this season, which in a league where there are not a lot of teams that are saying, "Hey, I'm the best in the league, look at me." Maybe this was another year for the Niners to be at the top of that pile were it not for just the myriad of injuries they've suffered.
Yeah, for sure. Bucks look strong.
Please talk about the next game before
Okay.
I just start screaming and crying on camera because I'm going to struggle here from Ford Field.
Sunday night football, Chiefs were at home against the Lions. They win 30-17. Couple of injury things to note before the game. Lions were without starting tackle Taylor Decker once again. Corners Terry and Arnold and Avonte Maddox also missing. I already mentioned DJ Reed previously going to be out for a while. So we were down to like a Meek Robinson as our best corner, and that's not a name that you want to be your best corner. But shout out to him for showing up and playing hard. Couple of things worth noting from this game. The Chiefs had zero penalties accepted against them this entire game. Since 2000, there have been 40 total games with zero accepted penalties of a team. This is the first time since the last week of the 2023 season, so 2 seasons ago, that this has happened. And there were probably a couple of plays that you can think about where there could have been a penalty, excuse me. For example, the Lions had a touchdown taken back from Jared Goff, who apparently was in a legal formation. He rotated out to the receiver position, took a pass from David Montgomery, and scored a touchdown. But they said because he was not set in time before the ball was hiked, it was a legal formation. On that very same play from a certain camera angle, it's very clear that Chris Jones is offsides. So those could have been, perhaps offsetting penalties or something like that, right? And then there was a couple of other things that we'll talk about in regards to this next situation. Do you want me to keep going, or do you have
I
any
can, I
input
can,
so
I can
far?
take this. I'll be strong.
Okay.
I will say there was one penalty called on the Chiefs. The Lions, I believe, didn't accept. So I'll
Yes,
be
that's why I said
generous in
accepted
that spirit.
penalties.
Yeah, I wonder how many games have had only one penalty called on a team the entire game. I imagine that doesn't massively expand the data set, but hey,
Yeah, because the
you know,
penalty was called on the Chiefs, but it wasn't accepted because we had a successful pass regardless.
yeah. And I will say for all of the penalty stuff with the Chiefs, I recognize ultimately that greatness rises above petty stuff like that, right? So I still think the Chiefs won. I don't think the Lions played a bad game. There was one particular incident, however, that's been making the rounds. Lions safety Brian Branch received a 1 game suspension without pay for unsportsmanlike conduct after just punching Juju Smith-Schuster in the face following the game. And it started a huge scrum. Branch, thank you for providing this great context here. Branch, with about 3 minutes left in the game, received an illegal block in the back from Juju Smith-Schuster. It went uncalled. Branch had been taunted by quarterback Patrick Mahomes, whose smugness I despise. After scrambling for a touchdown, he threw the ball at Branch's legs, pointed at him, and brushed his chest off. By the way, that's any one of those things, maybe
It's
not
like
brushing
three.
his
It's
chest.
three. It's three taunting penalties and one touchdown. It's
Yeah, if you
crazy.
like look at the sideline wrong, it's taunting, but fire. And then
I think
Mahomes,
back to running back Kenneth Walker, the Seahawks threw a ball after getting a first down at a player, and he got a taunting penalty called at him. Um,
yeah,
Pointing is like almost always called taunting, like immediately.
yeah.
So
Um, no, little skeptical there. I saw a great TikTok today where someone made a scale of, I think like success and then confidence, and they were just like, there's players who are really likable because they're incredibly confident and have some success, and that's Baker Mayfield. Players who have too much success and too much confidence, like Patrick Mahomes, are despised. And then humble people who have a lot of success, sort of like your Jared Goffs and like maybe your Lamar, Josh Allen, like they're accepted. And I
hmm
really, I felt that. Either
hmm
way, Branch after the game said, quote, "It was a childish thing, but I'm tired of people doing stuff in between the play and refs don't catch it. They be trying to bully me out there. I should have never did it. It was childish." He's appealing the suspension. Don't think that appeal will go over well. If anything, I think they should also just punish Juju and Patrick Mahomes with fines for instigating, clearly with an uncalled foul for both of them.
You also
But
didn't mention the Mahomes thing post game, the third bullet
oh,
point I had.
post game, yeah, post game, Mahomes tried to shake his hand, and Branch ignored him, and then I guess Smith Schuster verbally engaged Branch, and then Branch punched him. I feel like it's kind of, you know what you're doing when you go for the handshake with the player you've been taunting and targeting the whole game.
And then he
Uh,
kind
it,
of he didn't shake his hand as he walked past. He kind of patted him on the shoulder.
yeah, because Branch clearly rejected the shake, which like whatever. I don't really, if you're pissed off and you're like, hey, I'm just not going to engage with you because that's what's best for me. I think that's honestly just a respectable way to keep the temper down. And then obviously didn't manage to work there. Dan Campbell apologized at the podium to Andy Reid and the Chiefs. Did not condone his actions whatsoever, of course. And it's not the first time Branch has gotten hot this season. So hopefully something they're able to kind of recalibrate with him. That said, it just seems like there were multiple points of instigation for Branch. So I can understand why it got to that level.
The
Um,
block in the back was like super hard. It like flattened him because he didn't see it coming at all. It was totally blindsided. And it was on the opposite side of the field for whatever play was happening. It was like a run play to the other side.
and as you said, it seems like penalties away from the ball have been an emphasis for the league this season, but
Yeah.
I guess not in that particular instance. And yeah, I think in general, right, blocks in the back are also dangerous. So
Dangerous.
I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think there's little excuse for it. So I think Branch could have chosen a better forum for it. Either way, you come out of this 13-point loss for the Lions. Their secondary shredded is certainly an excuse. I think the Lions had a chance to take control. Their trick play touchdown getting called back took some momentum out. The Chiefs were able to get ahead of steam, and it just kind of ran away from the Lions. Here's my take after this game, and then we'll move on. I think I hate the Chiefs more than the Packers. At least right now in this moment, I think I hate the Chiefs more than the Packers. I
Yeah,
Packers are divisional
sure.
foe, but I have friends who are Packers fans who are kind and mostly treat me with respect after the games and recognize the pain that I go through when my team loses, and we kind of try to be vice versa on that. I just feel like I would never expect that sort of kindness from a Chiefs fan. I don't know why. I've met one or two who were nice to me, but I just feel like if I were in a sports bar with a Chiefs fan while this game was going on, they would be a little more Patrick Mahomes to me than I would like. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Throwing the ball at my legs kind of deal. And I don't want to generalize. If you're a Chiefs fan listening, I'm sure you're a fine person. I'm just upset at this defeat, and of course, upset that the Chiefs have managed to re-enter the best team in the league conversation at 3-3.
Yeah, I'll give my analysis of the game because I haven't really talked about the actual game
Sure,
itself.
sure.
I do think the Lions only having 17 is not a winnable situation with how you mentioned our secondary shredded. The defense is looking poor right now. And I mean, this is, we just had 4 games in a row. We scored 30 plus on good defenses too, like the Browns, for instance. And the Chiefs are another good defense. So definitely have the capability to put up better offensive numbers. Yes, there were the situations we just mentioned that kind of sucked, and obviously the officiating, you can complain about it every NFL game. Um, but at the end of the day, I do think they should have been able to put up more than 17 points when our defense is kind of struggling health-wise. Um, and Chiefs, tough place to play. Taylor was in the house, so that probably adds a weird element too. Um, for the Chiefs at least in terms of like their home field advantage. They're one of the hardest places to play in the league. So I do think it was going to be a Chiefs victory, probably regardless. Like, not, I didn't think that going into the game, but coming out of the game, I don't think it was these, specific situations we mentioned that were like, that's why we lost. I just think it's kind of like an insult to injury kind of deal.
Yeah. I think if these teams played, you know, I think if these teams played 10 games, it would be, closer to 5-5 than like 8-2. I
Hmm.
don't think the Chiefs blew me away in this game by any means. They were efficient. They were more complete on all sides of the ball. I'm optimistic once the Lions get some of their corners back, they're going to be able to change some things on defense there. to keep them kind of more competitive as they go along. But I want to move on to this next game because it was really a fascinating watch that really had me captivated on Monday night. I tuned in when it was 7-7 and didn't look back. Falcons 24, Bills 14. The Falcons, who got blanked by the Panthers, beat the Bills by 10 on Monday night in Atlanta. Definitely a surprising result. They did it without wide receiver Darnell Mooney, who was ruled out prior to the game. And with a pec, oh, sorry, one second. With a pec injury, Bills safety Damar Hamlin was placed on IR. They were also without linebacker Matt Milano and defensive tackle TJ Sanders. So definitely a short-handed defense for the Bills up against this Falcons offense. Also wanted to mention in the Chiefs game, they mentioned that Josh Simmons, their left tackle, missed the game due to a family issue that he had to attend to. So not an injury situation. Hopefully everything's okay with him. But I was shocked by the Falcons pulling out a 10-point win over the Bills, where they just took a lead and really never let go and just kind of choked the game out from there. What were your takeaways from this game?
My first takeaway, I really like the Falcons' red helmet. Now, here's the issue. It has the old logo that kind of sucks, but it's okay every now and then. If they start doing it too much, that old logo is going to be a problem. But the red helmet is a nice touch. My second takeaway, Bijan Robinson, best player in the NFL? Maybe. The guy is crazy. He's awesome.
Bijan's just a dog, dude.
It's so
Longest
good.
running touchdown of the season on, I believe it was either 81 or 83
I
yards.
think it was 81, yeah.
And I didn't even realize it was that long watching it in real time. Maybe I looked away, but I
It
was like,
seemed
oh,
effortless. Like
yep.
he like brushed off a defender and then it was like, oh, he scored. And it was like, oh, they were back in the 19?
Yeah,
Wow.
it was like a trivial 60 yards. It was insane. And the way he runs is just so smooth. Bijan's awesome, man.
Michael Penix looked better. I still don't know if he's like going to be a guy, but he's had a couple of very bad games this season, like Geno Smith bad, but he's had a couple of pretty solid games, and hopefully we can see more of those. Falcons defense, I'll keep bringing up to your chagrin. Those defensive rookies are looking good over there. They're solidifying the front.
Hey, listen, if it works out for them, that's great.
It's more
Um,
Walker than Pierce, and I know Pierce was kind of the one you were more not understanding because they traded the first round
it
pick
was just
next year.
moving the first round pick,
Yeah,
right? I think when, let's say the Falcons, let's just say, right, go 10-7 and have a wild card exit, just for the sake of it. And then you're thinking, oh, well, they're going to be able to like keep loading up their team next year. You don't have a first round pick to help you do that.
right.
And I recognize that maybe it's not the hugest loss in the world, but it was just something that sort of was still surprising. But yeah, certainly disruptive defense here. Again, they took a 21 to, gosh, was it? Had they scored their second touchdown? No, 21-7 lead into half, and frankly, it was very nearly 28-7. End of half, Drake London takes a pass, catches it as the clock's winding down. He opts to keep running for the touchdown, which I think was the correct call in that case because he so clearly had a shot for the touchdown, and ended up just like stepping out at the one. Incredibly close to scoring. Instead, they don't even get a field goal off of that end of game or end of half drive, excuse me. And that came off of a turnover, multiple turnovers for Josh Allen in this game. The second one coming with the game already kind of out of hand. I was worried for the Falcons because they weren't getting that three-score lead, right? And then the lead cut down to or yeah, they weren't able to really pull away. They finally make it a two-score lead late with a late field goal, having one blocked earlier in the fourth quarter, but it's an impressive outing. I still don't know if this makes the Falcons truly elite. I think it just goes to show that, the AFC right now, that it is not a pyramid. I think it's closer to like a flat, maybe rectangle where there's two tiers of pretty good and not very good teams, and that's kind of where you're at.
Yeah, the mighty triangle of Chiefs, Bills, Ravens has not quite panned out as we thought it may so far this year. My
Mhm.
15-2 Bills pick in jeopardy. They must go winless or lossless rather for the rest of the season. I also didn't put it on the notes, but Dalton Kincaid was out for this
Oh,
as
I'm
well.
aware.
So there's an offensive player missing from the Bills rotation. But, this Falcons team that lost, reminder, 30-0 against the Panthers a couple of weeks ago, feels like a team that the Bills should be able to beat. And they lost to the Patriots last week. I think both the Patriots and Falcons have shown that they can play bad football and they can play good football. They both happen to play good football against the Bills. But if the Bills are supposed to be the Super Bowl contending team, like they have, I imagine, thought of themselves in the last 3, 4 years, these are matchups you gotta win.
I scored 66 points in fantasy this week. 66.
I saw that today. It's
Uh,
tough, 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 tough.
the reason for that, to my defense, I had four wide receivers out: Mike Evans, Ricky
Wow.
Pearsall, Quentin Johnston, and then there was a fourth guy who was not available due to injury, I think. Um, maybe it was due to bye, maybe it was Jordan Addison, but then that also meant Jordan Mason was on bye, Woody Marks was on bye, so I didn't have access to them. So that was at least six guys. Brock Bowers out as well. That's seven.
Yeah.
And then before this game, Dalton Kincaid rolled inactive. I'm not going to switch a tight end in to try to get 70 points to overtake my opponent or whatever. So I just take a goose egg there. Apparently, the Colts defense will go like 14 points, 0 points, 14
Yeah.
points,
Yeah.
1 point. And I caught him on a 1 point week.
Yeah.
And I guess I
Against the
should have
Cardinals
checked.
backup quarterback.
Yep. Of course. So yeah, it was just a bad week, but I had a ton of injuries. I'm getting Mike Evans and Pearsall back this week, but Mike Evans will not be in the starting
Starting
lineup.
Alec Aomanor and Michael Pittman at the receiver position is
Pittman's
tough.
Pittman's been good. Pittman just had a bad. He's been in the teens multiple weeks this year. He just
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
this
yeah.
week.
Just like those are my two receivers this week. It's like,
No, he looks good. And yeah, I could have claimed like Travis Hunter, but I wanted to enjoy the Titans this week. I was not able
is
to because of
Travis
the
Hunter on the
protocol.
waiver wire in our league?
He is, yeah, yeah. Travis Hunter's out
Yeah.
there. Um,
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
hasn't really done anything, so that makes sense.
yeah, I, he's really an AO manner of the Jags in some respects.
Oh, there you go.
Um, but less draft capital. No, I'm joking. Obviously, higher ceiling there, at least in terms of expectation. Last game that matters. Let's move through it super fast. Get to the bogus. I want to hit these division standings before we turn to dust and cedar here. So, Bears 25, Commanders 24. Commanders without wide receivers T Mac, Terry McLaurin, and Noah Brown. The Bears, meanwhile, had to elevate Jake Moody to the starting kicker, who ended up getting the
Mhm.
game-winning boot following a, I believe, thigh injury to Cairo Santos. So
Yeah.
Bears sneak away. I don't know how much this one you watched, but a really disappointing end for the Commanders to a game they had well in hand.
Yeah, it was interesting conditions, right? It was pretty rainy, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
from what I gathered. I had Bills Falcons and Commanders Bears,
Mhm.
double screening it, and then Bills Falcons end. I can full screen the rest of Bears Commanders. But yeah, a game well in hand. A game lost due to some sloppy turnovers by both Ja'Cory Krosky-Mara and Jaden Daniels. Both had fumble losses in this game, I believe, um, which is tough against a Bears team that's no slouch. And happy for Jake Moody, getting cut earlier this season, third round pick from the 49ers. So happy he could step into the situation. Had a kick blocked in this game, so I imagine the confidence going up and kicking a game-winning field goal when all of this kind of narrative stuff about how you're not a good kicker is lingering in the mind. You're highly drafted, etc. So um, happy it worked out for him.
DeAndre Swift was running really well all night. That made it a close kick. I believe it was Daniels failing to secure the ball before trying to hand off to Bill or one of the other Commanders running
Hmm.
backs, and then yeah, it just ends up on the grass. Deshaun Wright, if I'm not mistaken, for the Bears just falls on it with um, under 3 minutes to go, maybe 3 minutes to go, and from there they just march down the field again. Swift running great, puts him at around the 20. Jake Moody's able to put one through and give the Bears a surprising win. Uh,
Lions legend
Lions
DeAndre.
legend DeAndre Swift, yeah, able to do it on the road and a nice win for them to bring them up to 3-2. Meanwhile, Commanders at 3-3, not exactly looking like the world-beating team we saw last year, but obviously down their top two receivers, and Daniel's still on the mend. So
No, not their top
TBD.
two. They had old man Debo out there. He's been cooking this year.
Hey, I'll give a shout out to Luke McCaffrey if you want to talk about someone who's cooking.
There you
He's
go.
a great return guy, and
Yeah.
he's made some solid catches for them, some meaningful plays.
He had
Put
a
him in scoring
wide open
position.
touchdown in this game. Like
Yeah.
the most open I've ever seen a receiver. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think he's playing his way into just kind of being in a receiver room for the next, 8 years, right?
Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about briefly because it's already it's oh what is that two a.m. Joking.
There you go.
Let's super quickly hit the stinkers. Were you awake for Broncos 13 Jets 11 by chance?
Nope, I sure wasn't. 8:30 in London. I'm asleep.
I was nummy nummy. What a game! Jets wide receiver Garrett Wilson hyperextended his knee
Knee.
and will be
Knee.
out for a couple of weeks. And hyperextended
Jesus
his week.
Christ, man.
I don't know. Maybe with the time zones, he did hyperextend his week. I don't know how that works,
Fair,
but
fair.
Jets took a late lead off of a safety. Broncos able to jump back out in front. The Jets offense was just nothing, nothing, nothing doing. How many net passing yards did the Jets have in this game, Dame?
10.
Did you say positive 10?
Yes.
It's actually negative 10.
Dang it. I knew 10 was the number. I thought it might
Uh,
have been negative 10. I was like, that's an insane thing to say. Because
Let me just make sure.
I heard about it. I listened to something about it
Yep,
in
negative
another
10
podcast.
passing yards for Justin Fields. He took like just a gross number of sacks, and
I
I guess
know.
that
It
put
took
him.
7, I think. Um, you're a scrambling quarterback, man. Get out of the pocket. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's tough. I heed the call highlighted the end of half sequence. I don't know if you saw or heard anything about this particular going down, but I watched it live. It had kind of fallen out of my head. But basically, they go for it on fourth, convert, which I totally forgotten about, and then they just sort of like stand around after getting sent to like fourth and one or something, and let the clock run out with like 25 seconds to go in the half. Fourth and one is gettable, right? You'd think. Instead, they just don't even call a play. They don't try to get them off sides. They don't punt. They don't do anything. They just sit there, tiddlywinks. Everyone's looking confused. Um, I mean, just bad, man. Jets are bad. This is, when you hold a team to 13, you got to get 14, right? I know you're not going to get it for touchdowns potentially if you're the Jets, but your team gave you a safety to put you up. If you had four field goals in this game, four field goals, then it'd be 14-13 with that safety. So just a really, I mean, just they don't look good. Offense bad, defense sometimes awake, mostly asleep. They are
My
starving for hope.
my Justin Fields take, it's not looking great. My Jets defense may be so good it can win games. Hasn't looked great most of this season. Their defense has fallen flat. 13 is not a bad outing, but they have not looked like this all season. 0-6. Aaron Glenn. I'm sad. I'm sad for the Jets.
Yeah, I wanted Aaron Glenn to be a great coach. Jury's out on whether that will come to pass. Moving on. Chargers 29, Dolphins 27. Man, Chargers remind me of the Packers. Remember when we were talking about the Chargers as potentially the AFC's crown jewel? Can't
Yeah.
sneak away from Miami and keep that narrative alive. Barely edging out the Dolphins in this game.
Shout out Lad McConkey on my fantasy team. Finally getting some work
Well, with
with
Quentin Johnston out, I'm sure he was on
right,
fire.
with star receiver Quentin Johnson out, as we all
Quentin's a
predicted.
dog, dude. Don't laugh at me. He's like fantasy wide receiver 10 this year or something crazy.
Yeah, I know. The issue is that was supposed to be Lad because that's what
Oh,
he
I
was
know, I
last
know.
year.
Um,
Mike McDaniel still has a job. We're on Mike McDaniel watch every week.
yeah, he's that locker room seems checked out based on Tua's comments after the game. So, um, pessimistic that they're gonna turn the culture around. Again, if they stole one or two of these games, right? If the Dolphins were 3-3, especially
They
if they
stole the game
beat,
against the mighty Jets. Come on.
right? I mean, the Jets donated that game to them.
That's the game that should have been a tie. Both of those teams should be 0-5-1.
That feels right to me. That feels right. No, I mean, I think the Dolphins, if they're 3-3 and get 2 wins without Tyreek or 3 wins without Tyreek, whatever, we'd be saying, oh, okay, Mike McDaniel's putting them in a spot, right? But they just keep dropping close games. Dropped one against the Panthers last week, Chargers now this week. If they can't close games, it just doesn't speak well to them right now. Defense looks inept, just based on the numbers getting put up on them. So
The Mika
tough
Fitzpatrick
situation.
trade was the best move of the offseason, right, Damon? Right.
I think
Wrong.
a lot of our offseason,
Wrong,
the
very.
Falcons
I
pass
didn't know the
rushers
rest of
and
their corner room was going to get injured for the whole season. So,
should my offseason prediction have been the Lions will bottom out or something and then they would be immortal? I
so the
don't
opposite happens, yeah.
exactly. I mean, it's kind of feeling. Didn't I say Gino was a good, or we talked about Gino being
I
potentially
said
a good?
Gino was a bad signing, so that one's looking good.
I think I
That's looking
disagree.
good for me.
I think I disagree. So that's looking poor for me there. Let's jump to Rams 17, Ravens 3. Big news here being Puka Nakua's foot injury. Returned, didn't do much. I believe he's expected to miss time. I don't think he's going to play this week for the
Yeah, they played
Rams.
this week and then bye week after, so would not be surprised if they just wanted to wait it a couple weeks.
100%. That feels exactly like what we're headed toward. Man, the Ravens are dust, I guess. The Ravens are um, when you
Cooper
hit.
Rush got benched for Huntley at the end of this game, but now they're on bye. Lamar should be back after.
Are the Ravens 1-5?
Yep.
That's
16
crazy.
and 1, baby. Let's go.
Listen, I'm just gonna say this. If the Ravens end the season with both a 1 and 16 in their record, there will be something interesting and impressive about that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, the Ravens released safety CJ Gardner Johnson via mutual decision.
This feels like
I
something we've said before.
I struggled to see
Suspicious.
CJ Gardner Johnson getting a job again this year,
I
unless
read
there's a
into
ton of
this.
injuries.
Apparently, it was mutual because their agent expressed the Ravens had traded for another safety, I guess.
That was the
And Kyle
Alohi Gilman
Hamilton,
trade, right?
right? And Malachi Starks will be back. Kyle Hamilton will be back. He wants to go somewhere where he'll play, and he was just like, I don't think I'm gonna play, so I'm gonna leave. And they were like, okay. So
Sure. I
I
mean,
wonder what team we'll talk about in 3 weeks that he's been released from, and we'll see.
yeah, it's tough, man. I understand him wanting to play. I understand his mentality. He feels he's maybe a starting caliber guy, but I just, I think at the end of the day, you can bring in someone who's maybe not going to have the most buy-in, or you can bring in a young person you might have a chance to develop. I don't know. Uh, Steelers 23, Browns 9. I said I had this split screen, but man, I don't remember a single thing. It was truly on the screen, and it made me feel nothing besides true admiration for Dylan Gabriel, who didn't look like the problem, didn't look like the solution. Seemed
You
like
know
the
how many passes
Steelers,
he threw?
wasn't it something like 45 or some way too high number?
52.
52. God, so many throws, dude.
The 2 games he started, he has the most pass attempts and the lowest completion percentage. So
Um, I'm gonna
doesn't
blame
necessarily
that.
mean it's a him issue, but
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you're telegraphing past that hard, you'd
right.
think they might figure that out. Any other thoughts on Steelers Browns?
Um, DK Metcalf looks good. I'm happy for him. I've always been a DK Metcalf fan. I feel like last year there was a little bit of like bitterness with JSN kind of taking over that primary role over there in Seattle. So happy he's the guy here and he seems happy with it.
I've never been DK crazy. The muscles and I was like, whatever. But I'm happy that you're happy for him, and I don't
He's
have any
just
real.
giant and really fast, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, and that's fun, right? It's a fun player archetype. Um,
He has a nose
I
piercing. That's cool. Yeah.
let him cook. He probably doesn't get a lot of flack for the nose piercing, but Caleb Williams gets flack for having his nails painted. It's an interesting league.
Right.
Uh, let's super quickly. I watched. Granted, I was doing things on my computer because it was Raiders Titans. Raiders 20, Titans 10. Whew. Um, Boring, man. This game was just a snoozer. And when you make the Raiders look good, your team's bad. Titans are bad.
And
They
your
failed
head
their coach
coach
for a
gets
reason.
fired.
Darn right.
It
This
makes
was
sense
not.
because this is like, okay,
Yeah,
we can't perform against the Raiders. See how bad they've looked this season. Yeah, we gotta change it up. Yeah. Makes
yeah.
sense.
Pete Carroll actually entertained coming in at quarterback for the second half just to see if he could do it. He was just kind of curious, but no dice there. No, I don't want to be that mean to the Titans, but I mean they just aren't very good. Maybe some changes on the offensive side of the ball will open some doors for them.
I
I
know
think.
Calvin Ridley left with the hamstring injury. He might be out a little bit.
Mm, hey, AO Manor, stock up.
There you
Already
go.
cut him for my team, but say no more. Last one, Packers 27, Bengals 18. Tell us about what the Packers did to the Bengals.
They won the game. That's what they did. But aside from that, right before a field goal attempt to go into halftime, 1 second left, 67 yards. So 1 yard more than the current NFL record held by Justin Tucker. Evan McPherson hit a 67-yard kick, but right before he kicked it, timeout was called, and they had to redo the kick, of course, and he missed that one badly. It was like short right. They returned it. It was like not even close. And it was like, to be fair, the kick he made was like they called the timeout and then they just like practiced the kick basically. Like they threw him the ball, he did it, kicked it. Like no one was trying to block it or anything.
Oh, okay. All right.
So yeah, it wasn't like oh, I thought I made the record and then oh no, it wasn't. He knew it was a
Okay.
timeout kick, but he still hit it. It looked cool. And it wouldn't be owned by Justin Tucker, and that would be nice, but here we are.
Yeah. I'm really excited. I do think we're going to see this record get broken this year. I don't know when it's going to happen, but
It's
really
fourth
excited
and
to see.
14, and it's a 68-yard kick for Brandon Aubrey. I mean, throw him out there.
Why not? I mean, yeah, there's probably 10 kickers you could send out in this league that have a shot at it. So, uh, with that said, I think we got to go. If we want to talk about these division standings and the slate to come, we got to cook here.
We sure do, don't we? Man,
Yeah.
I just can't stop talking. I feel like every game I'm like, oh wait, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this.
Hey, listen, me too. It's just our love of the game, okay? It'd be unethical not to talk about every team.
All right,
And here we're going to do that.
let me preface this here. So basically, I have a tier list. It goes for S, A, B, C, D, F. This tier is going to be based on NFL divisions and their watchability, meaning how watchable is this division currently post week 6, 2025-2026 NFL season. This is the only tier list I could find that had them already cut up into divisions, and I didn't have to actually put them in there one by one, team wise, because that would have been super annoying. I will say it has some old logos, such as the old Washington logo that I really do not like, but it does have like the St. Louis Rams logo, which I really do like. So, you know, some give
Is
and
this the
miss.
one that I texted you, or is this a different one?
No idea. I just looked it up on my computer. I forgot you texted me anything.
I mostly just want to see if mine has less offensive logos. I think it might be the exact same one. There were not a ton of options.
Not a ton of options, and I did not want to drag. I think the issue is if I drag teams on here individually, people will not understand that it's a division tier list.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to just have a picture that says NFC North on it or something. I don't think that really
Right.
tells the tale, so to speak. Um,
But I also
anyway,
over here have the division standings pulled up for our reference.
so what does watchability mean to you? Does watchability mean like watching the division race? Does it mean each team in the division? What's that to you?
So I was actually playing around with tier names before we got on, and then I decided to just do the old letter thing because I realized that it's not so open and shut. Like at first, I thought S tier means all 4 teams in this division are you gotta watch them every week. A tier is 3 teams, B tier is 2 teams, and I was like, no, that's not necessarily true because you could have 3 teams that are really good and one team that's like an awful watch. Or
Yep.
you could have 2 good and 2 okay teams, right? So there's like a little more give and take to it. Watchability means that there are The games this team plays in are likely going to be interesting because the team is competitive enough on one side of the ball at least that it's never going to be we are absolutely getting blown out and destroyed. Um, and there's some upside, there's some potential, there's some interesting players, etc. And then in terms of like the division race, I think it is more interesting if a division has more teams that are around the same competency level. And that way it's not like crystal clear, like, oh, well, we know this team's going to win this division. There's no shot anyone else has a chance. When there's more of a narrative to it, I think that is more interesting. And last thing, we texted about this a little bit as well. You were probably going to bring it up. Uh, Surprising things, I think, play a factor into this too. We predicted how these divisions were going to look in the preseason. If our predictions look wildly incorrect for a division, that means its watchability is probably up because there aren't as many predictable things happening on the field. So you want to watch to see what's going on.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think oh um to me also, yeah, it's are the unexpected results engaging unexpected results, right? Uh, for example, last year, the Vikings, not expected to be a super competitive team. Suddenly, they're in this dead heat with the Lions for the entire season. Comes down to the last game of the week. I'd say good divisional matchups matter when their divisional teams go head to head. Is that fun? Are the division rivalries very real? And then, yeah, when it's a surprising outcome, you want the surprise to be kind of a pleasant surprise. I think,
hmm
oh, three of these teams are really bad is not a fun surprise.
hmm
Versus, oh, we have two teams that look really good fighting for the division lead. One of them we didn't expect. That probably does a little more in the workability. But yeah, do I just want to watch these teams play and do I have hope for them? Is probably my biggest watchability. So,
Any
do we
given
want to start?
Sunday, there's 8 games going on at noon. Who are you going to tune into?
Yeah, do you want to start with the AFC East, seeing as they're furthest left here, the
Sure.
orange Dolphins logo?
Yeah, and I have the divisions pulled up here so we can reference that as well. If you're a visual person, meaning you like to watch the podcast and you're not actively driving, even if you don't like to watch the podcast, watch this part so you can follow along.
And if you're
Um,
passively driving, pay attention to the road.
pay attention to the road, please. So, AFC East, currently being led by the mighty New England Patriots, as we all expected, 4-2. They have the tiebreaker over the Buffalo Bills because they beat them last week, also 4-2. Miami Dolphins down at 1-5, as of course their one victory coming against the only winless team in the NFL, the 0-6 New York Jets. So, shout out to you, Jared, predicting the Patriots to have a pretty good season. I know a couple of weeks ago you were like, I was a little too soon on that take. Maybe not. After the last 2 weeks, we're looking pretty good. So, yeah. Who do you want to start with the watchability here? Do you want to talk about where you would put them on our tier list?
Yeah, I think this is a polarizing one. When I was talking about pleasant division surprises, this is what I was thinking of. Having the
hmm
Patriots in a race. I thought they'd be good, but I thought they'd maybe be 3-3 good, not 4-2, knock off the Bills good. So to suddenly have a chance for another team to really put pressure on the Bills to emphatically win the division for the first time in a while is awesome. On the other hand, I see New York Jets, and I know what game I won't be watching that weekend. And the Dolphins are the same. I don't have, at least with the Jets, like I'm kind of interested in like Aaron Glenn, and when a team is winless, I want to see them get their first win. I always think that's kind of fun. Dolphins have a win now, and I I'm not like, ooh, I want to see what's going on in the Shanahan McVay offensive trees. So what's going on with their running game? I don't. I feel like Mike McDaniel is a coach that speaks to people who love to analyze the game at a very granular level. I'm not that. To me, this feels like I would probably start with C tier and maybe put them in upper C. I could see lower B. That's where I go with the AFC East right now.
Yeah, that's fair. And we have 6 tiers and only 8 things to put in said tier, so
Right, 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 right,
we,
right.
we may have some tier list things, and that's okay. I think that's perfectly fine. I agree with your assessment, C tier, and this is why I agree. Here's how I just thought about it. I thought each team, and then I kind of averaged. Um, So for me, the Bills kind of always feel like an A tier watch. Like they feel like they're always a
Mhm.
pretty good competitive team, and then they randomly lose to the Falcons and the Patriots. In the Patriots game was pretty close. The Falcons game close score wise, but it wasn't really that close. Ultimately. And then the Dolphins legitimately feel like an F tier watch. I don't care. I don't want to watch it. I'm used to the Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle song and dance. Yes, I know Tyreek's out for the year. Um, they do have Devon Chain. That guy's fun to watch. And then the Jets, they do feel kind of D tier just because I root for some of those players, some of the people over there, despite what the product may tell you otherwise in the field. So that averages out to about a C tier for me. I think the Patriots and Bills are kind of carrying in terms of like, oh, this is like an interesting, unexpected rivalry. I would say 95% of people would have told you the Bills were going to win this division coming into the season. So, and they still might, but right now it's up in the air and the other teams really need to do their part to bring this division higher.
Yeah. I think the Pats, I naturally don't love as a team, but the division shakeup is intriguing enough to keep them in C for me for sure. Are we
You
gonna?
mentioned earlier how the Chiefs are so unlikable right now, and I agree with that. And they feel like how the Patriots felt when I was growing up with Tom Brady. That's
Mhm.
kind of the equivalent team, that dynastic team. And now it's gotten to a point where like I like Drake May, I like, you know, Mike Vrabel, I like what's going on over there. It's a different identity to me. I don't even associate it with the Tom Brady Patriots, so I'm okay with it.
I need to see a little more before I can get the stink off, but fair enough. Are we gonna do what you do with your NBA rankings, where you'll take a player and give them the letter, right? The like Sioux England Patriots and the Siamese Dolphins and the
That's a
sort
Dom
of
special. If you want to do
Dom
that, you're
special.
more than welcome
I
to.
just have one I
Uh,
want to do for our next division, and then
by
I'll
the
be
way,
done.
this is first pod tier list. Welcome to the pod tier list world. I hope you enjoy. It's only 8 things. We got to ease you in.
Yeah. We're doing 48 things next time. So
Okay, good. Is there a specific division you want to tackle next,
I'm just
or
going
are
in
we
order on this little
just going in order?
diagram
Okay,
here. It's got the four AFCs and then the four NFCs. I've got no problem with that.
fair.
Let's hit this AFC North right here.
Yeah,
Um, and Pittsburgh Steelers at the top, 4-1. Bengals 2-4. Baltimore Ravens and Cleveland Browns are both 1-5. Baltimore's only win coming against Cleveland. Whew. I think the ranking's pretty obvious here. Sillin Sabriel goes in S tier. That's a joke.
there
This
you go.
division has such little appeal to me right now. I think the Bengals have a sort of Schadenfreude where, yes, they're missing Joe Burrow, but the fact that the rest of their team is also like not carrying any of the slack, right? You'd expect maybe with a backup quarterback who's somewhat competent, the rest of the team can pick them up. It hasn't even looked really close, even with the Joe Flacco influx there. The Ravens imploding was interesting. Now it's just kind of a bummer. I think it's at the point where you're just kicking a team while they're down. I think Dylan Gabriel, Shadur Sanders gives some pop to the 1-5 Browns. I'll respect the fact that they have a good defense. Does that mean I'm tuning into them for any other reason than my random Dylan Gabriel bit? No. And boy, do I not care about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Holy smokes. With all due respect, there is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan close to me in my life. To them, I say, hey, I respect them. I care about them for that person's well being and because it brings them excitement to see them do well, and that's great. However, in terms of wanting to watch the Steelers, I don't have a ton of desire to go out and enjoy Mike Tomlin coaching Aaron Rodgers, throwing to DK, and Jalen Warren in the back. There's just not a lot of name there. I'm comfortable saying this is. I don't think they're an F tier. I think they're a D tier, but back of D tier for me, which doesn't mean anything when there's going to be one division per tier, but back of D tier.
Yeah, I who do you think the most interesting team in this division to watch for the rest of the season is?
I honestly feel like it. I think it probably is Cleveland for me right now until Pittsburgh starts beating really good teams. I
Yeah,
still don't
it's
view them as really good.
I agree.
So
It's Cleveland, and that's the issue. I think Cleveland's the most
yeah,
interesting
yeah,
watch, and
yeah.
they're the 1-5 mighty Browns. I just think their defense is kind of fun. I think the rookie quarterback thing is kind of fun. Um, so that's what makes them interesting. You mentioned the Ravens. It's just sad. It's just sad to watch at
Yep.
this point. They're so injured on. I know everyone focuses on the current Lamar injury, but their defense is like all second stringers basically the last couple weeks. It's rough out there. The Bengals don't know how to function without Joe Burrow. That's not a fun watch. Even Joe Flacco this last week was like, okay. And yeah, the Steel. I could not have said what you said about the Steelers better. I just don't care. I'm like, okay, they're 4-1, great. So like the best team in your division is a team I really don't care about, and that makes it a
Yep.
struggle every Sunday to want to watch your game. So I was also between D and F tier, but I'm comfortable in D tier for Dylan Gabriel for your sake.
Let's go. D for Dylan. D for Damon. But you're an S tier to me.
Thank you, Saman, as they call me. Let's move on here to the AFC South, as we all expected, led by the number one seed in the
Uh,
AFC, 5-1 Indianapolis Colts.
is that true?
Um,
Icky, icky, icky. Okay.
famously predicted 3-14 by Jared. To be fair, I think I predicted 4-13, so we're
Yep.
already both very wrong, and that's
Smoked.
okay. Daniel Jones has been awesome. Their defense has been pretty good. It's kind of wild. The Jags at 4-2, second place in the division, um, which is also a little surprising. Like if you told me they were second place going into the season, that's probably where I had them. I probably had the Colts and Titans below them. But they look like a strong 4-2. They have some good victories on their shoulders this season, including against the Chiefs, prime time last week. Um, the Texans, 2-3, they've started to turn it around. Granted, one of those wins was against the very bad Titans, who are 1-5 in this division, and the Ravens with all their injuries. So they have not necessarily been a world beaters in those victories. And then they had their bye week this past week. So hopefully they can maintain that momentum coming back. Obviously, this is who people thought was going to win the division coming into the season. And then the Titans, we mentioned, down at 1-5, um, look really, really rough. They're one win coming off that horrible Cardinals flop last week that we alluded to earlier. Here's something that I think is interesting that I haven't really been looking at, but I just looked at it for this division point differential. So the Colts are positive 78, the Jags are positive 19, which may tell you that their 4-2 record is more of a 3-3 record. The Texans are plus 47, despite having a negative record. Titans minus 78. Man, that is bad. They are getting walloped out there. Um, the Bengals have minus 80
I,
despite
I
being
I
two
was
and
just
four.
looking at that. That's
So
wow.
that's pretty crazy.
Yep.
So a lot of unexpected in this division. I think that's worth mentioning. I think there's the story of the Colts of this season and all of their victories and Daniel Jones come back. That stuff is kind of fun. I think it's kind of already lost a little of the flavor on me. Like already kind of like, okay, I get it. Um, and amazingly enough, at 5-1, I'm still not convinced. Their one close victory over the Broncos because of the leverage penalty was kind of whack. And other than that, they've beat some honestly rather subpar teams. Now, we've just watched teams lose to subpar teams that should win. So, I mean, you're winning football games at the end of the day. Um, Jaguars, I'm not super interested in the Travis Hunter thing. I know casual fans probably are. I'm kind of over Trevor Lawrence. I'm kind of over their whole offense as a whole. I want Brian Thomas to be better. He's been kind of bad. Their defense is fun. I like their defense. The Texans offense, despite their two recent victories, still kind of a bore to watch. Still looked pretty ugly out there. Their defense is theoretically fun, but I think they're just not on. They're on the field too much because their offense has been so bad that they get tired and kind of less effective as games go on. And then the Titans are tough because I think the Titans may be the worst watch so far this season. It's just ugly, ugly football happening. But I'm so excited about some of their prospects. Obviously, Cam Ward, and maybe with the new coach, it'll look a little different. Although it's right now it's the interim coach who has been there. Um, so this is a team that maybe it will increase. But looking at our tier list here, I think if I compare to the C tier, for example, Patriots and Bills, Colts and Jaguars as the top two seeds for each, I think that division is those top two, Patriots and Bills, a little more interesting than Colts and Jaguars, to me at least. And then I think Titans Texans actually is more interesting than Dolphins Jets. So I think this is a little more even spread where all four teams have maybe like mediocre interest, whereas the Patriots and Bills have a lot of interest, and the Dolphins and Jets had almost no interest. So I feel like it can land on the C tier, but I'm a little unsure. What do you think, Mr. Jared?
Yeah, I'm rocky on this one. Again, I'm a Lions fan, but I root for the Titans to do well, and so there's some interest there for me. I just have not cared about this Colts thing whatsoever. I had anti-Colts bias in my rankings when I was giving my schedule predictions. I don't know why. I don't know what Shane Steichen's done to me, but I feel like maybe it's that there's been so much Anthony Richardson talk that even when they weren't relevant, we were talking about them all the time, so that now they're relevant and we have to talk about them more. I'm just like, I'm so exhausted. I think when the Jags are a fun kind of good, I think the league is a fun place. I remember the Jaguars almost making the Super Bowl in the late teens, and it was like
Yeah.
crazy. And it was, Blake Bortles and Saxonville. I thought it was such a fun moment. So I kind of root for the Jags to be that. I think you're right, though. I'm not rooting for Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen to be the engine of that. So Texans, I got sick of the CJ Stroud hype from the jump. I don't love quarterback worship, and it felt like that was what was happening with CJ Stroud. All the big brain podcasters are like, "Oh, CJ Stroud with his various metrics." That does not appeal to me. All due respect to CJ, who's playing well. I do think Jaden Daniels is kind of, for me, unseeded CJ is like the young gun who I think will end up being a top five guy potentially. So, when this division was going to be Texans and then everyone else, it probably would have been low C, D tier. I would say you could put them either in front of the AFC North in the D tier, behind the AFC East in the C tier, and either of those would feel right to me. Just because there's just a lack of relevance to. I don't think I don't know. I actually, you know what? I'll revise that. I would put them in front of the AFC East because the Jets and Dolphins are just so uninteresting, and there's at least a narrative hook for each team
hmm
in this division. And the way that the Dolphins narrative hook is will their coach be fired, and the Jets narrative hook is will their coach be fired. And the Titans have already done that storyline, so we're gonna get to move on to some more interesting.
We've already moved on to the next thing. Way to go. Yeah. It's a little more balanced, I think, and maybe as the season goes on, I think I think Colts, Jaguars, and even Texans, if they can maintain their momentum, will definitely be a more interesting division race than Patriots, Bills.
Hmm. No doubt, because neither of those teams were expected to be in the division lead conversation as opposed to both the Patriots and Bills.
Right.
Let's hit the AFC West and
It's the
round out our
West.
AFC here. So this is going to be the highest in the AFC, I think. Chargers 4-2, ahead of the Broncos at 4-2, ahead of the Chiefs at 3-3, with the Raiders at 2-4. Raiders 2 wins coming against the Patriots in week 1, and then against the Titans last week. I think that there is kind of intrigue in the Raiders, but only if they make a change. I don't want to watch Geno Smith underperform for a full season. That kind of lulls me to sleep a little bit. They're supposed to be maybe a high floor team that made some interesting things happen. Being a low floor team constructed like a high floor team is a recipe for not being interesting. And that is where they are right now. I think there are too
Don't
many good
uh
run.
don't freak out on me. I'm gonna switch monitors here as you discuss. I shared
Sure,
out the
sure,
wrong
sure.
monitor. It's really throwing me off.
No, I'm going to keep cooking here. Respect to Ashton Genty, but I think right now there's a lot of good running backs in the league. And so his impact is being, even if by the end of the season he's a top 10 guy, there are 9 other top 10 guys right now. It feels like there's just more guys popping. Jameer Gibbs, Saquon Barkley's doing that. Rico Dowdle's having a moment. I don't know if it's going to be sustainable, but it's fun. We're talking about Scatabo. We've talked about Bijan as one of the best players in the league potentially. I mean, there's just running backs out there being that guy right now. So I don't think Genty's enough to make me interested in the Raiders. Now, if they switch to Kenny Pickett, I'll be interested because I always think like rejected backup is an interesting narrative. Chiefs at 3-3. I hate the Chiefs. Icky. My rating for this division would be higher if they were 2-4. Denver Broncos and Chargers both at 4-2. If the Chargers were still playing red hot football, I would actually be really into that because it would, to me, represent a sea change in the AFC that looks really sustainable. But with the injuries and now there's holes being poked in, and then the Broncos have looked an unconvincing 4-2. Yeah, they beat the Eagles, but those Eagles are shifty. The Jets, they barely were able to squeak away from in London. Obviously, lost a close one to the Colts there. I haven't been wowed from the Broncos based on what I've seen. I believe the other game they dropped was it to the Chargers. I believe, yeah, because the Chargers are in the division lead, so that makes sense. Even though they have lower net points and such. All of this to say, I think that there is there's a lot to like about this division, just in the sense that the Chargers and Broncos both appear they'll be playoff relevant. The Chiefs, unfortunately, for some of us, will be playoff relevant. I think looking ahead at the NFC, this might be B tier just because of what the NFC's got divisionally right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is another tale of two teams I care about and two teams I don't care about. Uh,
Yep.
so Broncos and Chargers I care a lot about. I do agree that I think it would be more interesting if the Chargers looked better, like if they looked like they did the first couple of weeks of the season, those back-to-back victories against divisional opponents. But despite being 4-2, they have a point differential of +2, and that's for a good reason because they don't look that great. And the Broncos, similarly, you've already brought the point. Their 4-2 is not super convincing. Barely beating this Jets team is like okay, that's a game you got to win by a lot. I will say what makes it interesting is because of the Chiefs' slow start, being a game back. I just really want one of these two teams to win the division and not the Chiefs to win the division. Like that's
Mhm.
an interesting narrative I hope can persist for a lot of the season. Like I hope the Chiefs don't just win like 8 straight and then they just kind of coast to a division win or something like that. I hope it's a little more interesting. The Raiders, they're bottom five team. Like it's like the Dolphins, maybe the Jets, um, Titans kind of have been that, but at least they have some interesting developmental pieces. The
Mhm.
Raiders are just they got an old quarterback, an old coach, and an awful team. So I don't know how I'm supposed to like what I watch, even with Ginty and Bowers has been unhealthy. That obviously hasn't helped. So they're pretty down there for me. They're really dragging the division down, and we've already talked about the Chiefs enough in this pod. I'm just kind of over the Chiefs. And I don't want to watch them unless I have to.
Yep.
Fatigue is the word I'll use. Um, man, we got a lot of tough watches here. I'm like looking at this, I'm like, wow, we haven't actually gone above C tier yet. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe it's
I'm like,
NFC bias, but I mean, I don't know. Not a lot of.
I don't even think I ha like it doesn't feel like I have that, but I'm looking at this, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely better than Patriots Bills as your best two teams. It's the AFC South that's the pivot point. Are they better than the AFC South to watch? It's like they're better football teams, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a better division to watch. You know what I mean?
Why don't
Um,
we do this? Because I feel like it's going to look pretty awkward if we have. Because I don't know if there's an NFC division right now that there may be one division, and it'll surprise you, that falls below the B tier for me.
sure.
Um, but I think maybe we move AFC South up to B tier just because like the Jags are really interesting and each team has a story, and then we maybe put this at the top of C tier because ultimately the Broncos are still like obviously they're not New York, but I just feel like their Super Bowls made them like, oh, the Broncos are meant to be good, and like, oh, you got Jim Harbaugh Chargers, they're meant to be good. Like I don't know. I think the AFC South is scrappier, and I like an underdog. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree because I think the Titans being the lone like really bad team in the AFC South right now, one is unexpected, but two, I still am more curious about their team and how they're going to look
Mhm.
post coach firing. than I am about the Dolphins, the Jets, or the Raiders in the AFC West.
Sweet.
So that makes sense.
Take
Okay,
us
I
through the
can live
NFC
with that.
East.
Yeah, NFC East. Let's talk about them. So, right now we have the Philadelphia Eagles, 4-2 with a -1 point differential, by the way. Washington Commanders at 3-3. Of course, missing Jaden Daniels a couple of those games. Dallas Cowboys 2-3-1. They have very good offense, very porous defense. New York Giants 2-4 at the bottom of the division. But have some momentum. They are on their way up. So this is a fascinating division for me. Coming into the season, we both had the Eagles on top. We had the Commanders closely behind in the wild card slot. We had the Cowboys, I think, probably considerably lower than consensus. We had them like way out of the playoffs, both of us. And then we had the Giants pretty low. I had them lower than you for sure. I had them at 2-15. That's not looking so good. Um, so. I think the thing with this division is the Eagles still having the best record, but maybe looking the least convincing recently is good for watchability purposes because I
Hmm.
want to see the fall off, I think.
Hmm.
Or I want to see them turn into the Eagles of last year where they look unstoppable. The tush push is uninteresting to me. The more tush push there is, the less interested I will be. Especially when you have Saquon Barkley as your running back. I feel like he should get a lot of goal line carries. It's just like it's not tush push is not a fun thing to watch. Running can be fun. That's not fun. Jaden Daniels for the Commanders is a lot of fun. And I think regardless of the offensive weapons there, that team is going to look pretty good and is going to be a watch. They're also interesting because they feel like a team that kind of can vary in performance. Like sometimes they can look like an elite team, and sometimes they can lose a game they definitely shouldn't lose. And that makes it interesting to watch. It's like, oh, they just lost this game? Huh. Surprising. Um, the Cowboys, maybe one of the most fun teams to watch in the NFL. I hate to say it, but when your defense gives up 40 and your offense can put up 40, that's good for me as a fan. I'm enjoying that. It's not three and outs all the time. Fun. I enjoy this. So that, as much as I don't like the Cowboys, especially growing up in Texas with a bunch of obnoxious fans, watching them this year has been like, oh, this is awesome. There's just offense all over the place. And I'm a guy that likes defense, but I don't like defense in terms of we ran the ball, we had an incomplete pass, we punted. That's not fun. I like turnovers. I like sacks. I like things like that. And those things will happen too, but offense and defense difference in their team, I think, is fun. Giants. Jackson Dart is the starter. No Malik Neighbors now. That's sad. Cam Scatterboo, we talked about, definitely runs a fun way. Just worry about his long-term health personally. Um, it's been a really, really fun team since Jackson Dart took over, though, and they look like they're having fun out there. And you know what? I've always appreciated how the Giants look. Their uniforms are so crisp, very
Hmm.
nice, pleasing to the eye. That matters in terms of watchability. I should have mentioned for the Commanders, they wore their ugly, ugly black uniforms this Sunday. I hate those uniforms. One of my least favorite in the NFL. Um, Definitely higher than everybody else so far.
Yup.
Maybe, maybe. This is tough. I'm leaning A tier. That's where I'm leaning. I don't quite want to reach to S tier because I think that the Eagles malaise and the Cowboys being the most obnoxious fan base that I can think of in the NFL kind of drag me down a bit. But what do you got for me?
I couldn't go lower than A, and I'll tell you why here. I think one, this division has the best fourth team to talk about right now, which is the Giants, right? Cam Scatterboot ripping his shirt off and chest bumping a shirtless Ryan Fitzpatrick on Thursday Night Football post game. I mean, that's entertainment, right?
Right.
I think the Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo narrative as your lowest division team. Now, I'll be honest, I don't care if a team is a good offense, like the Jet or the Cowboys having good offense. That doesn't really light a fire for me. I like good close games. I like battles. I like when both sides of the ball are capable. So just having a good offense isn't enough for me to love.
But
The
it's the good
Cowboys,
offense, horrible defense combo.
fair. That
That's-
doesn't do it for me as much. I don't love shootouts a ton. I typically like I mean again, I'm a defense guy probably more than an offense guy on average. Obviously I love the flashy offense, but when the defense can show up and show out, that brings excitement for me. I like the Eagles, I think, more than the Chiefs to watch because I begrudgingly have more respect for them. I think when I think of the Chiefs, I think of like the smugness and the narrative, whereas the Eagles are so constantly like imploding that they never seem to get too far over their skis and like too cocky and all their negativity kind of feels like it's driven towards each other, not driven outward towards everyone else's experience. And so it's kind of fun to see them fall off because their coach is kind of cocky. But for the rest of the team, it's just kind of interesting. Will they figure it out? Won't they? Their drama is so public. It's kind of like it feels a little bit like reality TV. It's like a Love Island thing, sort of watching how these relationships unfold. And then the Commanders are a really interesting hinge point team, both because they're kind of Texans too. They have this really promising number two overall pick quarterback, accelerate their timeline. Now they're going back trying to repeat. I find that storyline interesting. Obviously, having beaten the Lions in the playoffs last year, that's intrigue for me as well. And I think for that reason, A feels really good to me. I just think all four of these teams have something going on.
Hey, it is, my friend.
Woo.
Let's
All
talk
right.
about, tell me about the North.
The North, led by the Green Bay Packers at 3-1-1, with the Lions hot on their trail at 4-2. That's a win percentage issue. I was thinking about would I rather be 3-1-1 or 4-2, and I suppose technically, um, Green Bay has the potential to lose fewer games than Detroit, which is, I suppose, what you want, but also I don't think it's like, having four wins in the bag is nice. Whatever, it's a percentage thing. So
But
three one
don't
and
they
one.
also have the chance to win less games?
Um, no, they have the same odds to win the same number of games because they have
Oh,
we have
I
two
forgot they've had their
losses.
bye.
They've had their bye, so it's sort of a weird thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
3-1-1 versus 4-2 for the Lions in the second spot. Minnesota Vikings 3-2 and Chicago Bears 3-2. Here's a hot take. I think this is the least watchable NFC division right now across the board. Um, I love the Lions, right? And I,
Despite
I
all the
almost want to
winning records. Wow.
I want to take the Lions out of this conversation because if I just go, oh, well, I love the Lions, I'm going to watch them every week. Like, obviously, they'd be S tier, but that's not the spirit of the law here. I think the Packers have looked sub dominant after those first few weeks. I think Micah Parsons is an annoying narrative. So that goes against them. I think the Lions have a really dynamic offense. I think the Lions are the most watchable team in this division, just in terms of they had a really successful season last year. They always play teams tough. Um, they have spectacle on offense. They have this plus 49 point differential looking pretty good, especially considering the Eagles, by the way, had a -1 point differential. It's the top team in the NFC East. Minnesota with Carson Wentz and then maybe JJ McCarthy, that's kind of a dud to me. I think the Giants at 2-4 are more watchable than the Vikings at 3-2, just because until we get JJ back, will the rookie even be good? Who knows? Carson Wentz isn't really looking like a long-term solution or some sort of intriguing Sam Darnold style piece. And the Bears I find intriguing for the Ben Johnson factor, former Lions head coach. So obviously intrigued by his success. That said, am I sitting here always rooting for the number one pick to do super well? Not necessarily. I'm not like a Caleb Williams super fan. Um, I think it's kind of interesting again, but to me, it's more of an intellectually interesting than what is happening on the field is super interesting and dynamic and tantalizing. So if you put this division back of B, top of C, I wouldn't really blink at it. I could hear an argument to go higher though if you have it.
Okay. Yeah, this is another tale of twos here for me. I feel like the Packers and Vikings are just kind of boring to
Mhm.
watch. The way the Packers operate, and it's not bad for an NFL team. It's just as a fan, it's very methodical. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of like, oh, ah, it's like pretty standard what's going to happen there.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like they drafted Matthew Golden to do that, and it just hasn't kind of happened yet. And maybe it will eventually. Their defense is really good most of the time, but not like takeaways good. Just kind of like, yeah, we'll keep you in your short yardage plays, and we're not gonna let you beat us over the top. And again, from a watching perspective, it's not exactly like fun, I would say. Um, the Vikings, I feel like the most fun they were is that week one game. against the Bears where JJ McCarthy had like the crazy comeback fourth quarter, and since then it's been like okay. They slaughtered the Bengals because of Isaiah Rodgers' two defensive touchdowns. That was fun. But
Hmm.
that was kind of a one-time, one-off thing. That's not obviously going to happen all the time. Um, yeah, their team feels kind of boring right now, especially with Carson Wentz. It's boring. Maybe the JJ McCarthy thing will be more interesting. Lions offense is really, really fun. Obviously our defense has been injured, and again, like I mentioned for the Cowboys, that makes for a fun game. I don't mean that's my favorite team archetype to watch, but if the Lions put up 40 points, but then our defense is so dominant that the other team scores 13, at some point the game becomes uninteresting. So by having a relatively subpar defense, other teams have a chance to get into the game, and then it becomes more closely competitive in that way. That's what I was trying to allude to earlier with the Cowboys reference. Um,
Fair.
and then the Bears, I think, are interesting because they have so many people on the offense. Rome Odunze taking over as number one guy is interesting to me. DJ Moore, by the way, we should have mentioned, went to the hospital last night. He was cleared, but that he just, I don't know. There was like he went there for an injury reason, and he left okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I think
random.
he fell weird on a reception attempt, like on his leg, maybe something like that.
Yeah, yeah, it was strange. Luther Burden randomly the most catches for the Bears yesterday. We'll see, or Sunday rather. We'll see how. Oh no, it was yesterday. Um, see how that goes. Loveland's been out. That's kind of whatever. Caleb Williams, I do root for naturally because of the narrative coming in, the nail thing, people making a big deal, toxic masculinity, that sort of thing automatically makes me root for you. And I do, of course, root for Ben Johnson. And I feel like the Bears are one of those teams that, for a majority of my life, have been subpar. I know before I was born, they were a really good team. Um, but it hasn't really been the case. So, underdog story, that kind of thing. I'd probably put them above the AFC South, um, but definitely below the NFC East. So whether that's top of B or bottom of A, it feels more top of B, I guess.
Yeah, I think especially coming off last year, the division race doesn't feel quite that engaging, especially because the Lions and Packers had their matchup week one, their first matchup week one. And so we're not like looking forward to the week eight Packers Lions and what will these teams be looking like at the top or, something like that. And now let's say, one of those two teams suffers another loss and suddenly the Bears are the number two team in the division. Now that's a story, right? But until we're at that point, top of B feels right to me. With the
I
other two
lied. I
divisions we
want to
have
put them
coming up,
below the AFC South.
okay. I think it's probably equitable to have at least one AFC team over
I think that's what you
or
said.
AFC
I think
division.
you said top of C tier, bottom of B tier. And I thought about it, and the reason I would put them above the AFC West for sure is all the teams that are in C tier and below have at least one team that I would despise to watch. I
Hmm.
don't think
Yeah.
that these divisions have any of those, but I do think I am more interested in the AFC South and what's going on there. So this feels like a good point.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
All
Are you
right, you
taking
were
the
gonna
NFC
say I'm sorry
South?
about the next two divisions. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I think these two divisions will be higher personally. So
Okay.
I think we need to save room for that, which we have. But go ahead.
NFC South, led by the 5-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And all of their games really up until this past week, 11-point victory over the 49ers, granting them a 14-point differential. So it was three the previous week. Plus three as a 4-1 team. Now it's plus 14 as a 5-1 team. A lot of close wins. Guess what that is? That's exciting. You want to see a lot of close wins. That's great to watch. Um, Falcons 3-2 with a net point differential of zero. They are exactly tied on both sides of the ball right now. I think their offense is kind of a fascinating watch because it's a tantalizing with Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They have weapons. Michael Penix, will he, won't he, is kind of the narrative. And then the defense have a couple of young guys that they drafted that are kind of solidifying the front there. So overall, they've been a relatively interesting watch. Panthers 3-3. Um, 3-3 is surprising. That's like taking me aback reading it. I'm like, really? They've won 3 games? Wow. One of those being the 30-point, blowout of the Falcons, which is crazy. Panthers are interesting because, like, I want Bryce Young to be good, and he just hasn't looked that good. And I don't really care about their backfield, and I kind of care about Teteroa McMillan, but I also worry that he's going to suffer from being a Panther. And then I literally can't name people on their defense. So that's not a great sign. Derek Brown,
True,
J.C. Horn, there you go. That's
true.
my knowledge has ended of defenders on that
What is
roster.
Princely
Amukamara. That's a name I
Amama
know,
Obukamura? I
but
don't.
I didn't know he was a Panther, to be honest with you.
Was it Jeremy Chin? Is he over there? I feel like he
No
was at some
clue.
point.
He used to be
Okay,
a Raider, I think,
he
perhaps.
might be a Raider now. Actually, that might be where he is. Yeah.
Um, and then the Saints at 1-5. You talked about the Saints in your wheel game and kind of how it was nice to see Spencer Rattler and all of that. Man, I just don't care about the Saints. I'm ready for a new Saints. Ready for a new Saint. You know, uh, they're old veterans that they still have hanging around from their heyday. I'm like, get on somewhere else. We're gonna do something that matters and make me care about a young guy. There's not a young guy I really care about over there, to be honest. I'm like, kind of whatever on their roster. So that honestly brings me down because they're not, probably not quite like Dolphins, Raiders levels of like, ugh, I don't want to watch this team right now. But at least the Raiders have like Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers, those kind of exciting pieces. I'm not really excited about anything going on with the Saints. But the rest of the teams I'm excited about some aspect of. I think though that I would probably put this above the North, below the AFC South in B tier.
Uh, I I'm in a similar zone. I will say now that I've watched the Saints, I'm no longer interested. I was like, oh, Saints, and then I watched them, and I was like, I'm good. One was plenty. So that kind of takes me out of that conversation a little bit. I do have this weird love of the Panthers. I'm always just kind of, there's some part of me that wants to see the Panthers be good. I just feel like it's an interesting
The
league
other
when
three
Nuss is
teams
so.
are like pretty high on the list, so I
Yeah,
could see an argument. Yeah.
there's just something like so anonymous about the new teams, right? Like the Panthers being one of the newest teams in the league, that there's just some like intrigue there. And I know they had success with Cam Newton, but um, at the same time, I just feel like not that they're random, but they're one of those teams where the sort of story of their franchise hasn't been written in the way that we know what the Cowboys are. We kind of know what the Giants are in terms of their legacy and all that stuff. Panthers are still pretty fresh. I think that that's fun, even though they're probably what 30 years old now, but still feel fresh. And then I'll save this other team for last. The Bucks. I have a lot of respect for Baker. I feel like Baker is what they wanted Joe Burrow to be like. Oh, Joe cool, and he's like, he's just got the attitude and he's got the edge. Baker will just kill somebody. Like Baker's got that just sort of dog so deeply ingrained into who he is. I respect that a lot. I have a bit of fatigue on everyone being like Bucks 5-1. The Bucks are the best in the world. I don't know, right?
Number one
You know,
seed in the NFC.
if you're winning close games, and I'm not saying this to trash talk Lions upcoming opponent, whatever. I love the Bucks. I wanted to. My dad and I talked about, do we want to go see the Bears? Do we want to go see the Bucks? Monday Night Football was a draw, but I also just have a lot of respect for the Bucks as a franchise. So I was definitely drawn there. And then the Falcons, I think, might be the most interesting week to week team in terms of what result will we get, right? The
Mm-hmm.
30-0 drubbing by the Panthers against them. And then you beat the Bills, who up until Monday night were to me kind of unanimously the best team in the NFL, with the Lions and the Chiefs maybe hanging around there. I love my Lions, but I think the Bills had like the elite pedigree, they had the record, all that. Like if the Bills were 5-1, I don't think there'd be doubt, right? But they're not. They're 4-2, and it's because this random Falcons team sometimes turns it on. And they were my wheel team week 2, and the run game was dominant. They're just really interesting. I think the Falcons have a chance to be 7-10, and it's a lost season full of quality wins they couldn't back up, or they're 11-6 and no one wants to see them in the playoffs because they might have 3 great games and they're in the Super Bowl. So that's bottom of A to me. I just
Yeah, I
don't.
think I agree actually. I like the more I thought about it. I think the Saints were really weighing me down because maybe they were the last team I talked about, but the other three are so good.
I wanted to watch the Titans very much. I was really excited for Titans Raiders, and I started it, and I was like, I'm checking out.
I
So
mean, they were
respect to
playing
what
the
the Titans.
Raiders, to be fair.
Well, I wanted it to be a weird bad. I wanted a bad,
Yeah,
weird game, and I just got it's an unfun game. So back of A feels good. Here's our last division, NFC West. Am I
that's
taking
what they
this one?
call
Am
it.
I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Please tell me about the NFC West.
All right. At 4-2, the San Francisco 49ers. At 4-2, the Seattle Seahawks. And at 4-2, the Los Angeles Rams, with the Arizona Cardinals at 2-4. Here's the thing: the Niners have been shredding the division, 3-0. Seattle only 1-1. Their loss coming against the Niners. Rams 0-1. Their loss coming against the Niners. Cardinals 0-2, or Cardinals in the division, yeah, 0-2. One of their losses coming against the Niners. Uh, I just happen to think, and then I guess the Seattle got the other win on them there. Uh, Niners are super beat up, man. But the Mac Jones assaults, interesting narrative. Seattle, I think, is kind of one of those. Oh, oh darn, we underestimated this teams. That's really fun. I have Stafford Rams fatigue a little bit. I still think Puka's a really fun player and he has a lot of draw, but because Stafford already got a ring there, and all respect to Stafford, he was a great Lions QB. I just am kind of like, oh, will we maximize the window? Won't we maximize the window? And then I think Arizona Cardinals are fun bad. I think they're interesting bad. Does that make this an S tier division to me? Yeah. Again, I'm so used to this division being this way, where it's three good teams and then one team that kind of falls off, and I'm so used to the team that falls off being the Cardinals that there's some redundancy to the shape it's taking. That said, the division games here have some consistent buzz, so that's good. I would say if you put them in between the NFC East and South, feels about right to me. It's kind of a crowded A tier, but that's where my heart is right now. Maybe that means we move East up to S, but.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that the Seahawks a performance this year automatically makes them a super interesting watch. Sam
Mhm.
Darnold's continuing that and their defense being pretty good. Mike McDonald over there has done a good job with that crew. Rams. I'm interested in the Rams. The Rams feel like a team that every year I'm like, ah, this is like a wild card team. And then at some point in the year, I'm like, is this an NFC championship team? Like they start performing a little better than I thought they possibly could with the pieces that they have. Um, I get a little Sean McVay fatigue.
Hmm.
I got a little bit of that for sure. I think the Stafford thing, you know, great respect in Lions QB you mentioned. I watched him that one commercial like 6 years ago, and I'm like, I just don't care anymore.
Which one?
Uh,
Which
it was
commercial?
like an AT&T commercial or something. It
Oh,
was
I remember
probably
where
like
you talked
three
about
years
like
ago, not 6 years ago.
switching. Yeah, I remember this.
But I was
Um,
like, ugh. And him and his wife are weird. I don't know. They're like weird. There's a video of like somebody falling off a stage and they just kind of look at him. They don't help him or anything. It's like, what's going on here?
yeah.
Um, strange, strange. So I agree with with that part. The 49ers being banged up. I'm fatigued with that narrative. Why is it always that narrative?
It's
I'm
fair.
sick of this team
It's fair.
being, contenders on paper, and then every year some catastrophic injuries gut the roster. I was thinking about this earlier. I think Fred Warner may have been my favorite 49er. So now
Mm,
I'm sad about that.
yeah.
Uh, the Cardinals are a dumpster fire. Yep. That's
Yep.
that sums them up. Oh God, it's tough. I feel like I'm looking at the pivot point you mentioned here in between these divisions. I think, you said the Falcons were really interesting. I think I would put them above the Seahawks, but not by that much. And I do think I would put the Bucks or Panthers above the Rams, and then I would definitely put that other team above the 49ers. And then like maybe the Cardinals barely beat out the Saints. What I'm trying to say is I think the NFC South might be more interesting. Um,
I think that's fair. I think it's probably still a step up from the AFC South. So yeah, that feels right to me.
Yeah, this feels good. I like this.
This actually does. Yeah, there's some parity in the middle. It feels right that there's no F. Do you want
Get
to read
that
them
word out of
off?
here. We're gonna take turns reading them off. You've never done the old read off, so I got to give you the read off rundown. Here's how it
Sure.
goes. I got to clip it for the short, so I'm gonna say what it is, what the tier list is, and then I'll start us off with the S tier, and then we'll alternate. You'll take A tier, I'll take B tier, you'll take C tier, I'll take D tier. You get it.
All right.
Um, so
Do we offer reasoning
nope,
or just
because
like no? Okay,
this is
straight
just the
rattle.
recap. Yep.
Got it.
So we have tiered the divisions in terms of watchability so far in the 2025-2026 NFL season. In the S tier, we have determined the NFC East is the most watchable division this year.
Following up close behind in the A tier, the NFC South at the top of that tier, followed closely by the NFC West.
Yes, sir. Down in the B tier, we have our first AFC appearance, the AFC South being the most interesting AFC watch so far this year and going forward. And then behind them, still in the B tier, the NFC North. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
In the C tier, we have the AFC West, followed closely by the AFC East. Might be a bit surprising to put them this low for some, but I think there's some dynasty fatigue amongst us.
Yes, and lastly, our least interesting division to watch so far this year. Kind of shocking. I wouldn't have predicted this if you asked me in the preseason. The AFC North, all the way down in the D tier, just brutalized by injury and by teams that I just don't care about.
But hey, D for Dylan Gabriel.
So true. And that's
Uh,
that.
nice.
Now, 2.5 hours into our podcast, let's talk about next week's slate of
Quickly,
NFL games.
let's hit the wheel. Let's hit the wheel. You closed it. We got to do
Oh,
the
you're
wheel.
so right. You're so right. I gotta hit the wheel. Oh, I'm so wrong. I also need to save this picture. I'll do that later. Who's first this week? I already switched the names. It's you.
Sweet.
You're first.
Did you take the bye
I
teams
sure
off?
did take the Ravens and Bills off for the bye weeks. Yes, sir. Jared, your dream of watching the Panthers comes true.
Just in time for me to be on a flight. That's exactly what I wanted to say. I will
Yes.
watch this game in the airport on Tuesday, probably. And I
Guess who
can't
they
wait.
play?
Who do they play? I don't know.
The Jets. Yay!
I thought I truly have wanted the Panthers for like 4 weeks. Brilliant. That's awesome. That's
That's
huge.
awesome. Okay, let's look at the preview real quick. Who am I going to get here? What's the other horrible worst matchup on the docket that I could possibly get?
I might
Not a
I
horrible matchup probably, but so not interesting as to me, Steelers Bengals. That D tier
oof.
division. Oh man. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
get one
would
of
I
those two
would
teams here.
say any other real clunkers, maybe I wouldn't be super hype about Colts Chargers or Saints Bears, but that's just me.
Hey, I get Jaguars Rams. This is bad. Why is this bad?
Listen, oh,
Do you know why this is bad?
why?
At 8:30 a.m. on Sunday in London.
Ooh.
That's a tough draw for me. I'm excited. Really, we have this narrative with this guy that doesn't actually watch the podcast that just comments on that one reel about how every week we talk about the Jaguars and how he's like, "See, you guys were wrong." This week, I actually commented and I said, "I see you haven't commented yet after their loss." And he said, I'm not worried about it. We're coming back strong. We'll still make the playoffs." And I said, "What about winning the division?" He said, "We'll see." So, I'm excited for
Intrigue.
that reason, and I think it's two interesting teams. So honestly, a pretty good game. I'm overall pretty happy with that.
It's another good litmus test game for the Jags if they can get through Seahawks, Rams 1-1 after having beat the Chiefs. That'll make them look pretty good if they drop another one. Granted, they're in London, which is tough, but their operation has been doing that pretty much annually, so I would think they'd have a leg up there as well. Going to be really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go through the rest of the slate here as quickly and fast as possible, or maybe we could also have a 3.5 hour long podcast. I don't know. We'll see.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, let's hit the highlight games, and I'm gonna take the first one just because it's too obvious
y
for me not.
yes,
Uh,
yes, you
Bucks
need
at
to.
Lions. I will be there. Their wide receivers are banged up for the Bucks. Our corners are banged up for the Lions. So might be kind of a injury on injury matchup there. I think it's going to be an electric environment. So excited to go to Detroit as an adult and see some of the culture of the city with a little more just sort of awareness and prescience and in a time where it's so exciting to be a Lions fan. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, rooting for a Lions win there. And the winner of that game, I believe, would be sitting on top of the NFC, I guess, unless the Packers win and then create some sort of complication there. So either way, really excited for that matchup and wanted to get it out of the way because it was obvious.
I'm so excited for you. I think that this is going to be a great experience. We're going to get some live reporting from the game, I believe. We'll go live on YouTube or something, Jared from Ford Field. It'll be awesome. So tune in.
Definitely will update the Ford Field pick. That was the
There you
for
go.
sure.
Let's see. What games am I excited about? Can't gotta be real. There's not a lot of exciting games on the slate. I'll go Giants Broncos 305 slot. The Broncos have had some victories that aren't convincing. The Giants just had a super convincing victory over the Eagles, and then as well as a victory over the Chargers a couple weeks ago. So those are both two solid teams that I think they've beaten. And while the Broncos are 4-2, the Giants are 2-4. I feel like momentum leans its favor towards the Giants, and they're on the road. So this is either, hey, the Giants are here, they're real, maybe even this year, or it's like they get stomped into the ground by the Broncos, and it's like there's the team that I've been meaning to see. Or it's a close victory by the Broncos that's unconvincing, and I don't learn anything about either team.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst case, but definitely, yeah, it's kind of a prove it game for both teams in some ways. I don't think the Giants have shown enough yet where like, oh, they're clearly scheming themselves open and the play calling's a lead and this is going to be a real handful for teams. They're just winning games right now without um, being super convincing. So the Broncos should be able to handle them. If it's close to the Giants steal it, I'm going to be worried about the Broncos. Going to move on to our next game here because we want to keep moving. Falcons at Niners. This is Sunday night football. Once again, I maybe this will be on in the hotel room. Maybe it'll be out at a sports bar or something that Sunday night. We'll see. But either way, uh, yeah, I think this is continuing the conversation about the Falcons. A great test for them, sort of similar to where the Jaguars are, kind of number two in their division, but with some quality wins. I think this is, in fact, very similar. Now you got a quality win against an AFC power. Now you're going up against an NFC West opponent, right? Except the Falcons have to travel. 49ers super banged up. If that young defense is strong, it will take advantage of the missing offensive weapons to cause some chaos for the Niners and maybe walk away with the win. And if the Falcons start stringing dubs back to back, that'll push the narrative. Alternatively, if they drop this game, we're going to have to keep wondering which side of the Falcons is the real side.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation by you. I think 49er health will matter a lot in how seriously I take the result of this game. I'll jump over to another 3 o'clock game on Sunday, Colts at Chargers. It's interesting because it's one of those games where the Colts could win again, and I still don't know if they're real because the Chargers have been inconsistent as of late after their dominant start. Or is it like the Colts fall back to earth and the Chargers look good? I feel like the most likely outcome is the Colts get a narrow victory on the road, and I don't learn anything, just like I said with the Giants and Broncos. But I think it has the potential to be an interesting game for both teams.
Yeah, I think a good pick there. Colts Chargers definitely going to be that's a game that has the potential to really matter in terms of AFC seeding at the end of the year. The Colts continue on a division winning run. If the Chargers can maybe take control of that division, depending on how the Broncos and Chiefs do, then that may be, a 1, 2, 3 seed kind of difference there. So definitely a meaningful game for two slightly surprising Colts more so division competitors. I don't know if there's another game worth seriously discussing.
Yeah, maybe Eagles Vikings. JJ's back. How good are the Vikings?
Okay,
Yeah,
so we
but yeah,
will have JJ. Okay, that's interesting.
he's supposed he could He's questionable.
Oh, okay.
Because he wasn't placed on IR, and this would be the fourth week since he's been out. So,
Interesting. All right.
um, yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
Let's see. There's a particular game I want to talk about. Are we talking about Eagles Vikings again, or are we done? We're good with that.
We're done with Eagles Vikings.
We're good with that. Okay, I'll go first. Steelers at Bengals. Thursday night football. Will Joe Flacco revert to his old self and bring a victory over an AFC North division rival?
Fun thing I'll add to this particular game. Mike Tomlin openly questioned why Andrew Berry traded Joe Flacco to the Bengals in division.
Mm. He was like,
And
I
that
would
was
never do something like that.
yeah, he's like, he must be smarter than us. And I was like, wow, that's kind of cold. Anyway, um, Patriots Titans. Yeah, I'm already sick of the Vrabel narrative too, but hey, at 3 o'clock it'll be over.
Fair. I will take Dolphins at Browns, the game I alluded to wanting to talk about. In reference to one of my favorite playoff moments, Kawhi Leonard's buzzer beater over the 76ers in the 2019 NBA second round to put the Raptors to the conference finals. They eventually won the championship. He shoots a shot, it bounces around on the rim, and the commentator says, "Is this the dagger for Mike McDaniel's coaching career?"
Nice. I like that because you teed me up for a really nice one here.
There you go.
Saints Bears. Man, the Pope has to be pretty conflicted about this one.
That's great. For context, Chicago native who is the Pope, so Saints. Yes.
Thank you.
That's a great pull from you.
I
Um,
love the basketball tie on Dolphins Browns. We got some religious pull on Saints Bears. Let's keep it rocking here.
let's keep it rocking with Raiders at Chiefs. How long will it be in this game until Gardner Minshew comes in for the Chiefs?
Oh, interesting. Uh, Packers Cardinals. Another game where Micah Parsons will have no sacks, not because he can't get pressure, but doesn't it just feel like the Cardinals QB will slip on a banana peel a few times?
Yeah. Somebody has to doubt him by contact,
It's fair. It's fair. Probably his own
Uh,
offensive lineman falls on him. I don't know.
right. Commanders at Cowboys could have been a game maybe worth talking about a little bit. Division matchup. That's kind of interesting. Um, God. Wait, it's not Thanksgiving yet.
Oh, nice. Subtle but well placed. Well done. Um, Texans, Seahawks. When I look up at the occasional Ford Field Jumbotron header that lets me know how the other Monday night game is going, will I see the Seahawks shattering the Texans season for good?
Nice, nice. Could
I could
be.
see it happening. It's going to
For
be an
sure.
interesting one to read about while I'm waiting in line at the urinal or something.
Mm.
Either way, some great games, a few of them, and then the rest of the slate. I mean, Panthers, Jets, I am required to watch, so that's
Don't
sweet.
worry, we'll come back and talk about it for 2 hours next week. So you
Love it.
have that
For
to look
now,
forward to.
let's. Oh, I'm supposed to make the field goal. Do I have my football with me? Oh man, I might not
Oh,
have prepared a
this is your
K-ball.
Jake Moody moment.
This is my moody moment. Um,
Hashtag Moody moment.
hang on. I've been iced, so I'm gonna go to the sideline. Give me one moment.
I'll give a commercial break while Jared's gone. If you like this program, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, leave 5 stars, and on either platform, comment and tell us how handsome we are.
Sorry,
Right,
I
Brian?
had to go drink some Gatorade and then have my sweat turn the color of that Gatorade in a really uncomfortable commercial. Uh,
There you
now that I'm
go.
powered up and back, why don't we take that 67 outside kick that McPherson was going to take here?
Yeah, that's what we do. You make a kick that was missed in the week. That's the goal, right?
Um,
We're doing it at Ford Field today, and I'm coming home first. I see. Tradition has
former,
changed.
I'm going to come back. Former kicker Rodrigo Blankenship has a TikTok series as he tries to get his career resuming, where he does exactly that. He makes every missed kick from the week. That's his like modus.
Is that the glasses guy?
It is. He loves Legos too. It's pretty entertaining. Anyway,
That fits out. That
I
fits.
feel very Rodrigo Blankenship in this moment as I line up for my 67-yard Evan McPherson kick.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Oh, you down the middle. It has the distance. It's good.